react to the new top 4 from the College Football Playoff Committee and the next step for Odell Beckham Jr. after being waived by the Cleveland Browns. That's coming up Wednesday. Canty and Golick Jr., 3 Eastern on ESPN Radio and ESPN+.
Saturday, the UFC returns with an electrifying featherweight showdown.
Oh my God!
Former UFC champion Max Holloway looks to continue his rise back into title contention by stopping the dangerous striking of Yair Rodriguez, who is on the hunt for another spectacular finish.
He's unbelievable!
UFC Fight Night, Holloway versus Rodriguez, only on ESPN+.
Ballmen on Campus with Jay Billis, LaFonso Ellis, and Seth Greenberg.
I mean, Billis, it's not like, see, Fonz probably pays for his stuff, or except you're on the A package from Duke. So you get this package from Duke every single year for all your Duke Brotherhood stuff.
My hand is out. I don't deny it. You're not
If
it's free, hey man, if it's free, it's me, and I'll take 3.
Jay Billis, LaFonso Ellis, and Seth Greenberg. Check out Baldwin on Campus wherever you get your
WYNG 1410 Dayton, Dayton's ESPN Radio. We're live. We're local.
What are you gonna miss? He struck him out.
We're Dayton's ESPN radio station. Now, let's send it to the WYNG studios for Dayton's only local sports talk show. It's the Justin Kinner Show with Kev Nash, presented by Orion Sports Medicine.
All right, you're stuck with me today, and just me. It's the Justin Kinner Show with Kev Nash. Mine is Kev Nash on a Wednesday. Hope everyone had a great Tuesday night. I know I did. College basketball tipped off, and excited to be kicking off the hour with you guys here this afternoon. Of course, I want to dive right into the college football playoff rankings that came out last night. Not a whole lot of buzz, not a whole lot of noise as far as that's concerned. When you take a look at the college football playoff rankings that have come out, the only major change really, and one that the reason it wasn't a surprise is because we expected it. We expected Michigan State to drop out. Remember, they didn't just lose over the weekend. They got blown out. Keep in mind, I want to start and preface the segment with that Michigan State did not just lose, they got blown out. And I'm hearing way too many complaints about things that really have nothing to do with anything other than people just wanting to complain. So Georgia 1, Alabama 2, Oregon moves up to 3. With Michigan State losing, that, of course, made that number 4 spot open and available for someone to be able to come in and hang out for a little bit. I do truly believe that with the way Ohio State has performed, that Nebraska game was not a great game. They moved up to number 4 because Cincinnati couldn't do their job. Everyone's going to do this thing when it's all said and done where they're going to blame the committee. But I could think of no better year for the Bearcats to make the playoff than this. The committee could only do so much to help out a Bearcat team that's not really doing a whole hell of a lot to help themselves. Way too many Bearcat fans want the committee to help them out, all while they are doing everything they can to keep them out. What I mean by that is this. When I say that there was no better year for the Bearcats to have a chance to make the playoffs, this is the year to do it. For one, your traditional Clemson power is out of the picture. The entire ACC is out of the picture. On a normal given year, if Dabo Swinney's Clemson Tigers team are doing what they're usually doing, you would already be talking about Clemson in the playoff. You'd be talking about Georgia and Alabama potentially, definitely taking one of the 4 spots, if not potentially like we're doing now, potentially taking 2 of the 4 spots. So if Clemson was Clemson and Alabama and Georgia are doing what they're already doing, and you would have to think that Ohio State would always be in the picture, even with the 1 loss to Oregon, you still have undefeated Oklahoma. Do you see how much more busy the room gets? And had Oregon not lost to a bad team weeks after beating Ohio State, Oregon would be considered a lock to make the playoffs at this point, because you would have Alabama, Georgia as a lock. Clemson would be a lock if they were the traditional Clemson team this year. And then the Pac-12 would finally have a representative fighting for a spot in there, of course, with Oregon. And then there's Ohio State and the Big Ten in general. So that's usually, there was no way that the Bearcats were going to be able to overcome Oklahoma out of the Big 12, Ohio State out of the Big 10, Georgia and Alabama out of the SEC. The fact that you have Oregon now out of the Pac-12, and then you would have normally had Clemson. there are so many traditional powers that have basically fallen off this year that have opened up the door for the Bearcats to make the playoff. Let's be honest. Outside of Georgia and Alabama at 1 and 2, Oregon is one of the weaker playoff teams I can remember as far as being in the top 4 at this point. Oregon is there because they have the best win of anybody with their win against Ohio State. Oregon is there because they've taken care of business and blown out all of their opponents outside of the one bad loss they had since beating Ohio State. But they're there for one reason only. They beat Ohio State. Oregon's not a great football team. And look, all while I'm trying to prop up that good Oregon team to justify why Ohio State lost, Ohio State was not playing good football to start the season. But Cincinnati has nobody to blame but themselves, because had Cincinnati blown out their opponents the last 3 weeks, they're sitting comfortably in the top 4. This is not the committee moving the goalpost to keep them out. They have nobody to blame but themselves. The college football playoff field is weak this year. Like, this is not a very good Buckeye team. Like, they have very good weapons. I think C.J. Stroud's a very good quarterback, but I think he's still trying to figure himself out within this offense, especially with what Kevin and I talked about yesterday, with his inability to, whether it's his inability to make plays with his legs or his unwillingness to. There's still some room for growth there. The wide receiving core, obviously, Buckeye fans would tell you it's the best wide receiving core in football, and I think it's absolutely the deepest. I think the run game for Ohio State, it's absolutely the deepest. I think Michigan State's run game, their running back, is as good as Travion Henderson, if not better, but the Buckeyes' run game is better because of how deep that they are with that offensive line. But Ohio State's not They're not as strong as they were a year ago or the last 2 years with Justin Fields and all the experience that was on those rosters before leaving for the draft this past offseason. Ohio State's down. I thought that the Big Ten was up. I thought, and right now we're talking about more Big Ten teams than we usually are at this time. But you have Penn State and Wisconsin, who did not do the Big Ten any favors this year. Iowa had a chance to make some noise, but again, they got exposed and they weren't the real deal. So the committee tried to give them a look. They didn't take advantage of their opportunity. Purdue has made some noise, but overall they have not been great. They haven't done a damn thing. They have some big wins, but they look like Purdue more than they don't. So the Bearcats have nobody to blame but themselves, as far as I'm concerned, for why they're not in the top 4. Because with Clemson out, with Oklahoma not getting any love from the committee, with the Big Ten just basically self-imploding over the last couple of weeks, with Michigan losing to Michigan State following it up with the blowout loss against Purdue last weekend, Ohio State picking up a loss early in the year to Oregon, Penn State just kind of, peeing down their leg as well. The Big Ten, although we're talking about a lot of different teams in the mix, not a whole lot of national championship contenders in that Big Ten. The Bearcats had an opportunity to convince the committee that they're top 4 worthy by blowing out horrible opponents. They are horrible opponents in Navy and Tulane and Tulsa. No ifs, ands, or buts about it. Nebraska's a bad football team, but they're not like atrocious like Navy and those teams are that Cincinnati's playing. That's not an opinion. That's a fact. There's a reason that Cincinnati is ranked so low when it comes to strength of schedule. That matters. Buckeyes don't have the greatest strength of schedule, but it's still better than Cincinnati's. That's why they're in the top 4. But yeah, I think that we're always going to look back at this year and say that, the committee bullied the Bearcats, and that's not what happened at all. Because the only way I would have agreed with you is, and I've been saying this from the beginning, and Shaw, I think you've already chimed in, yeah, you have. Shaw and I were getting into it at the beginning of the football season because I said, no, the Bearcats will be fine. When they beat Notre Dame and they took care of Indiana, I'm like, they looked the part. And if they look the part against Notre Dame and a Big Ten Indiana, even if it's a bad Indiana team, that's still Big Ten, Power 5, athletes out on the field that Cincinnati's matching up with. I look at that situation. I'm like, man, Cincinnati's fine. They just got to, they got their big wins. They got to continue blowing out their opponents in conference schedule and they'll be fine. But they haven't done that, and that's why they're where they're at. That's why the committee threw them a bone and moved them up to 5. But we all know there is this little invisible line that will keep them from getting in. And it's not a bias against non-Power 5s. It's not because they hate the Bearcats. It's because it would be irresponsible of a committee to put a team in the top 4 that could barely beat Tulsa, that could barely beat Tulane, that could barely beat Navy. And then you get a lot of people who bring up, well, look, Alabama struggled with LSU. If you are dumb enough to think that LSU, although bad this year, if you still think that LSU on a down year like this is as bad or equal to a Navy, you don't know football. If you think that LSU being down or as bad as they are this year, if you still think that they are equal to a Tulsa or a Tulane, you don't know football. And that's the same thing for Nebraska. Nebraska is not a good football team. I'm not going to sit here and try to paint a picture as they are, but those are legitimate Big Ten, Power 5 athletes on that roster. That is not the Navy roster. That is not the Tulane and Tulsa roster. I don't want to have a repeat show of what we did last week at this time, and I'm making a lot of the same points. But if you guys, and here's why I have no problem doing a repeat show every single week, because if you guys are going to continue to use the same excuses every week as to why the Bearcats aren't in, instead of just accepting the fact that they're not very well, they're good, but their resume is not very good, I don't know what to tell you. Because if you're going to continue using the same arguments every week, I'm going to continue using the same talking points every week. It's a two-way street. And that's why we take your calls. That's why we interact with you in the comment section, in the chat section on Facebook and YouTube, is because you guys get to say just as much as I do. Just mainly you guys type it out. Of course, you guys can call. But yeah, I'm not going to not talk about the playoffs out of fear of saying the same exact thing as I said a week ago. Nothing's changed. If anything, I think the Bearcats are lucky to be at 5. I think that they don't deserve to be at 5. And I think it's very hypocritical of Bearcat fans and the Cincinnati media, an hour south of here, to actually have the nerve to call out Ohio State for, not blowing out Nebraska, for calling out Alabama for not blowing out LSU, to actually utter those words, to actually utter any kind of shot at LSU or at Alabama or Ohio State, to actually think that Ohio State and Alabama, that their struggles against Nebraska and LSU, if you actually think that those are the equivalent to Cincinnati's struggles against Tulane, Tulsa, and Navy, I kind of just want to quit this show, because I don't want to have conversations with people that actually think Navy, Tulsa, and Tulane are on the same playing field as LSU, as Nebraska. I'm not here to tell you that Nebraska is a good football team. I'm not going to try and convince you that LSU is a good football team. I'm telling you they are not a good football team, and that it was not a good showing by Ohio State, and that's why there was a lot of angst, and there was a lot of uncomfortable conversations about the Buckeyes' performance against Nebraska. There was a lot of people criticizing Nick Saban in Alabama because they did not take it to Ed Orgeron and an LSU team that really should have got pounced. There's no reason why LSU should be hanging around in a ball game with Alabama, but there they were. But that's the point. Alabama's off day could be easily caught off guard by an LSU team, because the gap between LSU and Alabama, although wide, is still a lot tighter than what a team like Cincinnati should be claiming is a tight gap between them and their conference. No team, Alabama, Ohio State. All right, if you look at Georgia, if you look at Oklahoma, you look at Michigan, who's still in the mix of things for the playoffs, Michigan State, whoever, nobody who would play in that conference. If Michigan State played in the American Conference, I guarantee you we would hold it against them if they didn't blow out opponents for 3 straight weeks in that conference. It's that simple. It's that simple. So, again, Bearcat fans, be careful what you ask for. What you are asking us to do is criticize Ohio State for not blowing out an opponent, all while wanting to give you a participation trophy because you couldn't blow out Navy 3 weeks ago. Then you followed it up with another crap performance against Tulane that you pulled away late. And then the trifecta, whatever that garbage was this past Saturday. I'm over the Bearcats. I am not for sympathy trophies. I'm not for playoff berths just because they're a great story and it's a feel-good story and it's Rudy and it makes everybody feel good. Look, I am 5'5". All right. I am not tall. I am not good looking. I'm not any of those things. You think that if anyone out there would try to sympathize with the small up and coming guy that never gets a shot, that ain't me. You know what? I don't even ask for sympathy. I don't feel bad for myself whatsoever. I'm the luckiest guy in the world to have the job that I do, but I don't sympathize with the Rudies of the world. I don't sympathize with the Cincinnatis and the Dayton Flyers and all those other teams who try to sit at the adult table and convince everyone that they are bigger than what they are when they're just really good at who they are. And the Bearcats will have a chance when they move up to the Power 5 to get a little bit more wiggle room. But again, in the Big 12 even, you could struggle in the Big 12. You could have 3 straight, like if Oklahoma went 3 straight weeks of not beating a team by 10, that is still a better outcome the last 3 weeks for an Oklahoma team than Cincinnati than Cincinnati just edging out opponents the last 3 weeks. It is not that hard to understand. And the sad thing is I actually think you Bearcat fans know this. I actually think you understand this. And what's ticking me off is that you're choosing to ignore common sense with this. It's one thing to still be in the mix when you play absolutely nobody, but it's a completely other conversation to have. Like, I'm like amazed at how many of you are trying to defend Cincinnati when we know that they don't play anybody. And it's 3 straight weeks of, playing down to their level. And yet you want us to feel bad for them and say that the committee's bullying them. You have to stop. It's not the same thing. When Ohio State struggles against Nebraska, that's not a good thing. Okay. It's not. I am not okay with it. We Byers and Kev criticized Ohio State and Ryan Day on Sunday. Kev and I criticized the Buckeyes yesterday and Monday as well. And the bottom line is it's not okay to narrowly escape a game against Nebraska. But at the same time, it's a lot more easier for me to comprehend why Ohio State would struggle against a Nebraska. I could deal with Ohio State struggling 3 straight weeks against a Rutgers, Maryland, and Nebraska. I would forgive them for doing that way before I would forgive a Buckeye team for struggling with a Tulsa, a Navy, and a Tulane in a 3 straight week period. That is not me being a hater. That is not me, being, hating on Cincinnati or being an elitist. It's common sense. You guys preach about the competitive nature of the playoff, but yet the only reason you want the Bearcats to be in is because they're a feel-good story. Wake Forest at one point was undefeated, right? Wake Forest isn't a cute little underdog story, so no one paid him any attention. Wake Forest, they had a tougher strength of schedule than Cincinnati, and they were undefeated just like Cincinnati. And yet their whole body of work, yes, Cincinnati has that premier win against Notre Dame, which, by the way, every Bearcat fan tries to tell you that they're getting no credit for. That's the difference between the Bearcats and Wake Forest is at that time, Cincinnati had the worst strength of schedule in all the teams that were in the mix. Wake Forest strength of schedule was better. Wake Forest didn't have that premier win, which is why Cincinnati was getting all the love. But you guys weren't screaming about Wake Forest, about how unfair it is that, oh man, Wake Forest is undefeated. They, if that was an SEC team, they'd be top 10 and blah, 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 blah. No, you don't want the playoff to be fair. You don't want the playoff to be right. You just want your team to get in and forget logic, right? It is what it is. On to the next thing. For the people who are upset about Michigan State or about Michigan being ranked ahead of Michigan State. Joel Klatt, a very intelligent football mind who knows way more about football than I ever will. Okay. And I'm amazed at how guys like that can actually question how Michigan is ahead of Michigan State. Oh man, the one, the head to head, there's no way that they should be ahead of Michigan State. What are you talking about? Now I'm pissed off because you're making me defend Michigan. I have no problem with Michigan being where they're at because Michigan State, that was a who's who game. That could have gone either way. Michigan could just have easily as won that game as they lost that game. And Michigan State could just have easily as lost that game as they won that game. And the difference between Michigan State and Michigan, you're saying there is no difference. They're both 8-1. And actually the difference is Michigan State beat Michigan. Yes, they did. And you want to say that wins matter? Wins do matter. That's why Michigan State was in the top 4. But what you don't get to do is lose to a bad team and not just lose, but get blown out. This rule is not new. So by Joel Klatt's standard and everyone else out there that is just ticked off at the committee for moving the goalpost or whatever you want to say, they did not move the goalpost, by the way. How you can have a problem with Michigan in front of Michigan State is beyond me. Yes, Michigan lost a close game to Michigan State. And everyone's like, oh, the head-to-head should matter. It does matter. That's why Michigan State was ranked higher than Michigan after the game. That's why Michigan State was in the top 4. Had Michigan won, they would have been in the top 4. And Michigan is ranked ahead of Michigan State right now, not because the committee is ignoring the head-to-head. It's because Michigan State broke the rule. The rule of you can lose, but you can't get blown out by a bad team. And that's what happened. Ohio State missed the playoffs years ago when they had one loss to Iowa, then 1 year, one loss to Purdue the next year. And everyone said, well, that's unfair. Alabama's made it with one loss before. And Ohio State, that's the SEC bias. Or you just shouldn't get blown out. If Ohio State would have lost to Iowa by a field goal as time expired, they're in the playoff that year. If Ohio State doesn't get bludgeoned by Purdue, as crazy as that sounds a few years ago, at Purdue, they make the playoff with one loss if it's a close loss. You cannot get blown out. I think it's dumb as can be to sit there and say that, well, because they won the head-to-head, Michigan should never be ranked ahead of Michigan State. Really? They should not? So does that mean, like, once you lose to a playoff contender, you will never be able to – you guys ever play that game Trouble or Sorry? Is it like the game Trouble? I mean, I used to play when I was a kid with my brothers all the time. And there's a point where, where you can't pass at a certain point. Like if that person's in the lead, you cannot pass that. You have to, make sure that you have to be able to get the exact amount to get to that certain point. So that's what we're playing here is, well, Michigan, you're allowed to keep moving up, but there is a point where you can't pass Michigan State. So at a certain point, your season's just done, even with the loss. That doesn't make any sense. It does not make any sense. Michigan did not get preferential treatment by being ranked ahead of Michigan State. Michigan State was held accountable for not just losing, but getting blown out against Purdue. It's that simple. Don't get blown out. You can lose. Don't get blown out. I'm Justin Kinner, live on Facebook and live on YouTube. We're live here on Dayton's ESPN radio station, 1410 Wing AM. No Kev Nash today. He will be back tomorrow. Appreciate everyone who's jumping in on the chat section right now. The phone calls this is how it's going to work today, by the way. The phone lines are not open at this second. When I go to the commercial break, the phone lines will be open. We will take your calls. We'll get you in the order that you call in on, and I'll take your calls on the other side. So if you're calling now, which I'm getting a lot of people mad because the lines are busy. The lines are closed right now because, well, I'm a one-man show today, so bear with me. But the second we go to that commercial break, call in, get your spot in line, and I'll take your calls on the other side. 518-1410. Just keep that number in mind. I want to go to the chat section before we close out this segment real quick, and we'll put a nice little bit of music behind it too. I feel like it's a little flat today, right? Like I feel like I came in with a little anger, and I don't know why. I was excited to talk about the playoff rankings. Buckeye fans, are you jacked that they're in the top 4? I mean, I figured they'd be in the top 4. I had some caller last week that just totally went off on me, trying to tell me how bad Ohio State was. I knew they'd be in the top 4 if they kept winning. There's no doubt in my mind. They went out. They're in the playoff. And I think that's why this isn't big news. Like, this is the difference. This is why, like, a proven program like Ohio State, they're in the top 4. No one's jumping for joy and doing cartwheels. It's just, yeah, we know. It was expected. Right? Like, that's kind of where we're at. It was expected. So we'll talk about that coming up around the corner. David Shaw says, as a college football fan, I'm upset. As a Michigan fan, I'm happy. Shaw, explain, what do you mean? Do you mean in regards to Michigan being ranked ahead of Michigan State? You're a Michigan fan. You should be happy. Sean Boland on Facebook says, who would you say has the second best win right now? I mean, I just don't think there's a whole hell of a lot of quality wins. At the very beginning of the season, I thought Georgia had the best win of anybody when they beat Clemson. Clemson is not the Clemson of old, so that they don't. I can't give that win to them, but I give them credit for putting Clemson on the schedule. Everyone likes to rip Alabama and the SEC and say how they don't schedule tough at all. LSU has played Wisconsin. They play tough teams every year. Georgia plays tough teams every year. I give the SEC credit. Those schools have no problem going on the road to play teams or welcoming teams into their house. Alabama is the only one that marches to the beat of their own drum. But I do believe Oregon has the best win. Cincinnati has the second best win. But again, just because you have the first best win or the second best win, it doesn't mean that that's an automatic ticket to get into the top 4. That just kind of puts you at an advantage. I mean, it's about bolstering your resume. So for those out there who are sitting here pissed off that Ohio State's ahead of Cincinnati in the playoff, you got to ask yourself, why are they? It's not favoritism. It's not because Ohio State's a bigger program. It's simply because Cincinnati did not blow out their opponent for 3 straight weeks. In all seriousness, I mean this. I'm adamant about this. If they took care of business against Tulane, against Navy and Tulsa, and blew those 3 opponents out, and let's just say they blew 2 of the last 3 opponents out, they're in the top 4 over Ohio State because they'd be undefeated. They'd be kicking ass in their conference and convincing the committee that, yes, I know we play in a weak conference, but you guys know based on our win against Notre Dame that we're significantly better than our conference, and by us blowing out all of our conference opponents, we are showing you that we are top 4, that you can't hold us to the American Conference standard. But it's hard to not hold the Bearcats to an American Conference standard when they're playing down to the level of the American Conference. Like, I don't think I'm being a hater there. Like, you know what I mean? Like, I'm having a hard time with you guys who are trying to let Cincinnati pass. Like, why are you guys not upset? You guys should be mad at Cincinnati for them not blowing these opponents out. This isn't, I'm just sticking to this bully. I don't want him in. I don't want him in. I do want him in, but I don't want them to get in just because they're a by golly feel-good story, make you feel good about yourself, all warm and fuzzy inside. How can you really argue to put the Bearcats in the top 4 right now? Yes, they have a great win against Notre Dame, but again, it's not about one game. If it was only about that game, then the Bearcats should quit the rest of the season and just live off of we beat Notre Dame. It doesn't work that way. You got to beat Notre Dame to get your spot at the table, but you got to be able to beat everyone convincingly to keep your spot at the table. And that's what they haven't been able to do. Now, to flip that, Sean, I think what you're trying to get at, too, is with Ohio State not having an impressive win at all, Penn State, I thought, would have been that, but I can't. I'll give you that, Sean. Can't give Ohio State that win to a 3-loss Penn State team, right? Like, I get that Ohio State doesn't have that sexy win necessarily, but as I stated earlier about the Bearcats, it's not just about one game. You know, you're making it too much about who the top win is. And it's not about that. It's about the full body of work. In Ohio State's strength of schedule, when you start splitting hairs, the strength of schedule for Ohio State, it just wipes Cincinnati away. It totally separates them. And it's not just that, because Ohio State's strength of schedule is not good either. I'll give you that. I'm not going to make excuses. I'm not going to be a Buckeye homer. But I can't understand why the committee gave the edge to the Ohio State Buckeyes, because as I said earlier, and you guys know this, you're choosing not to comprehend it because you're angry, because that's what we do when we have the answer to why something is happening that we don't like. We ignore it, and then we just start blaming people for being a hater or for rigging something or for it not being a true result that we like. That's what we do, right? When the result is not what we want, we blame others. And that's what you're doing right here. Instead of taking a good hard look at yourself and your team and saying, oh yeah, Bearcats, you should have blown out these 3 horrible opponents, because, you're trying to convince everyone you're a top 4 team. And right now you're showing that you're at the level of your conference. And that's what you got to do a better job of showing, that you're not at that level. But Ohio State, they don't have that big time win. But again, a win over Maryland, putting 50 on Maryland, putting 50 on Rutgers, winning against Nebraska, not pretty, but winning against Nebraska. You win, against Nebraska like that, and you follow it up with another bad performance against Michigan State. Now we can have a conversation, and I would have it with you. But that Nebraska game was the worst game of the Buckeye season. What, so what do you want me to say to that? Like, okay. They've been beating up on all these bad teams. They take care of Penn State that night under the lights. They're facing everyone in front of them and taking care of business. They lost by 1 possession to a top 3 Oregon team now. What else do you want them to do? They should have beat Oregon, yes, but you lost by 1 possession. Nothing you could do about it. It's a good loss, So that's all. That's all I'm going to say. 518-1410. And Sean, if I misunderstood what you were asking, chime back in. I think you did just jump back in. So Sean says, I expected UC to be at 5, by the way. Okay. All right, and that's fair. I'm assuming. Oh, I'm sorry. There's one more from you. Sean also says, agreed that they should have blew those teams out, but I think a loss to Stanford is worse than 3 non-blowout wins against bad teams. Have no problem with OSU win. The Oregon one is interesting. I'll give you that. Like, they're propping up that Oregon win against Ohio State, and that is the best win of the season of anybody. But I'm with you on the Stanford thing too. Like, I can give you that. I could see why that's creating a little havoc. But Sean, in my defense, I get real defensive about the Buckeyes takes on this, or about Bearcats Buckeye fans takes on it, because everyone's trying to discredit the Buckeyes all while ignoring the flaws of the Bearcats, and that's why I get annoyed. But if you want to go at Oregon, not just because I'm not an Oregon fan, but because that does make sense. Like, Oregon's in because they have 1 loss and they have the best win of anybody else. But that 1 loss is against a team that you would think would make them more 4, right? More 4 or 5-ish. So I get it. Your war, by the way, Bearcat fans, needs to be with Oregon. You guys need to be getting into it with Oregon fans. The Cincinnati media are driving me nuts. They're making this too much about Ohio State. What has Ohio State done? If you really need to have people explain to you what Ohio State has done, even though they don't have that big sexy win, your hate for Ohio State's getting in the way of your common sense for how the playoff works. And although the goalpost does move for the committee, it's not that hard to figure out that the Bearcats are more to blame for why they're not in the top 4 than any kind of bias that anyone else can have. But Sean, thanks. A lot of good stuff in the chat. I promise I'm going to get to that on the other side. Let's take your calls as well. 518-1410. The phone lines are only open during the pauses in the show, mainly so we can get you on hold. I'm by myself today, so just bear with me. 518-1410. Give me a call, and we'll chat on the other side. Don't go anywhere.
Listen, stream, watch. It's the Justin Kinner Show with Kev Nash, right here on Dayton's ESPN Radio, 1410 Wing AM. ESPN 1410 Wing AM weather.
This afternoon will be partly cloudy, a high near 64. Tonight will be mostly cloudy, a low around 50. And tomorrow will be mostly cloudy with a chance of showers and thunderstorms, a high near 65. I'm Pete Spivak for 1410 ESPN Radio.
Weather is brought to you by Cullet Propane, making buying propane easy since 1952, offering budget billing and pre-buy options. Find out more at culletpropane.com. We are racing at Hollywood Dayton Raceway. Catch the excitement Monday, Tuesday, Thursday, Friday, and Saturday. Post time on Monday is 2 p.m. Tuesday, Thursday, Friday, and Saturday, post time is 4 p.m. Be there this Saturday for your chance to win one of 5 big screen televisions, Roku sticks with subscriptions to Racetrack Television Network, and gift cards to the Skybox Restaurant. That's this Saturday at Hollywood Dayton Raceway. Post time is 4 p.m. Be a winner at Hollywood Dayton Raceway.
Timothy's Bar and Grill on Brown Street are huge supporters of the Dayton Flyers. Whether you're one of the 13,000 fans cheering on the Flyers at UD Arena or one of the hundreds of fans packed inside Tim's on game day, there is only 2 places that you can feel the passion of the Flyer faithful more than anywhere else. Timothy's Bar and Grill is also a sponsor of the Justin Kinner Show with Kev Nash in the afternoons and the Talking Out Loud Hour on Thursday nights with Sully. Timothy's Bar and Grill on Brown Street. Go Flyers.
I'm with Dr. Sharon Parsons, past president of the Ohio Dental Association. Soft teeth run in my family, so going to the dentist won't help, right?
Actually, your family history does not necessarily determine whether you'll get cavities or develop gum disease. Your own behavior can prevent dental disease. By regularly seeing a dentist and brushing twice a day, flossing once a day, and avoiding tobacco products and sugary foods and drinks, you can put yourself on the right path to having healthy teeth and gums for a lifetime.
ODA member dentists are located throughout the state, are dedicated to providing the highest quality care, are bound by the highest ethical standards, and obtain superior ongoing education and training. On your next visit, ask if your dentist is a member of the Ohio Dental Association and American Dental Association, so you know you're being treated by the best. To find an ODA dentist in your area, visit associationsadvanceohio.com.
Gathering your family around the dinner table for a home-style meal from Lee's Famous Recipe Chicken is the perfect way to end a fall day. At Lee's, homestyle happens here with our 12-piece family meal for only $32.99. You'll get 12 mixed pieces of Lee's fresh, never-frozen Famous Recipe Chicken that's honey-dipped, hand-breaded, and pressure-cooked to perfection, served up with 3 large sides and 6 fluffy biscuits. Get a homestyle meal made easy with Lee's 12-piece family meal for only $32.99. Only at Lee's, famous for chicken.
Get in zone, AutoZone.
Welcome to AutoZone. What are you working on today? So your headlights are getting dim? With the seasons changing, now's a great time to change them. Upgrading your headlights can ensure you'll be safe and ready to handle darkness and fog. Oh, and we recommend replacing in pairs. That way you won't have uneven lighting over time. You can get all of your lighting needs fast with our next day delivery and free same-day store pickup. Getting the job done just got easier.
Get in zone, AutoZone.
Restrictions and details at AutoZone.com.
There's never any FOMO with the iHeartRadio app. You won't ever have to miss out on your favorite shows and contests with this radio station again. Radio 24/7, 365. We're here when you want us. Stay connected and listen anywhere when you download the free iHeartRadio app.
Attention Class A CDL drivers. Looking to be more than just a number? Yoel Transportation in Dayton is looking for drivers with at least 1.5 years experience. Yoel has open positions for no-tarp flatbed drivers and no-touch regional or local van drivers. Yoel is ELD compliant and offers 401k with match, medical, dental, vision, holiday pay, vacation, safety bonuses, and now has a rider policy. Call Rick or Joe at 937-294-5933 and ask about the $5,000 sign-on bonus today.
Get in zone, AutoZone.
Welcome to AutoZone. What are you working on today? So it's about time for an oil change? We've got what you need. Right now, you can get 5 quarts of Mobil 1 full synthetic or synthetic high mileage motor oil and an STP extended life oil filter for just $36.99. And you can get it all fast, your way. Just order online with our free same-day store pickup or next-day delivery.
Get in zone, AutoZone.
Start your job today at AutoZone.com. Restrictions apply.
5G is here, but the big carriers want you to sign a pricey long-term contract to get in on the action. Well, no more, because Straight Talk Wireless has rolled out 5G coverage nationwide, with plans starting at just $35 a month with no contract. And get a Samsung Galaxy A32 5G for only $299, all on America's best networks. 5G coverage, 5G phones, less money. Straight Talk Wireless, no contract, no compromise. 5G capable device required, actual availability, coverage, and speed may vary.
Bags under your eyes? That's junk sleep. And Mattress Firm can help. Shop the Black Friday sale and save up to $500 on top-rated mattress brands like Sleepy's.
He's a former Buckeyes great and now a college football Hall of Famer. And don't forget about his 13 years of NFL experience playing for the Eagles, Dolphins, Jets, and the New England Patriots. He's Dayton's own Keith Byers. Hang out with him every Monday at noon on the Keith Byers Show, presented by Lee's Famous Recipe Chicken.
Welcome you back. Justin Kinner with you here on Wednesday. Yes, of course it is. See, I don't even know what day it is. It's been a weird, long week. Comes to that. Dayton Flyers, they defeated the UIC Flames 64-54 in their season opener last night at UD Arena. The UIC Flames out of the Horizon League held the Dayton Flyers to only 25 first-half points and took a 32-25 lead into the half. The Flyers cleaned a few issues up in the second half and were able to hold off the Flames in the second half for a 64-54 10-point win. UD's Tsunami Kamara led the way for the Flyers at 15 points and 10 rebounds. The Flyers will be back in action at UD Arena again this Saturday night, 6 p.m. against UMass Lowell. The Wright State Raiders routed Lake Erie 86-53 last night at the Nutter Center. The Raiders struggled to find the rhythm early, and they led 25-24 with 7:15 left in the first half before going on the 23-4 run to close out that first half. Wright State's Tanner Holden led the Raiders with 19 points, while the big man in the middle, Grant Basile, finished the night with a double-double, 13 points, 13 rebounds, added 4 blocks on top of all of that. The Raiders will hit the road for a Friday night matchup at Marshall for their return game of a home this Friday night. Number 17, Ohio State, they escaped their season opening game against Akron last night, 67-66. Ohio State led 36-28 at the half, but a second half surge by the Zips made it a rough tip-off for the Buckeyes as the Zips outscored Ohio State 38-31 in the second half. It was, again, a very impressive performance by the Zips in the second half, again, outscoring Ohio State 38-31, but it wasn't enough. The Buckeyes edged out the win and will look to build on that this Friday night when they welcome in Niagara for a 7 p.m. tip-off. But, had Ohio State lost that basketball side of things, that would have been very alarming, because I think that if you look at the fact that they lost to Oral Roberts in the NCAA tournament last year, that's the last time we saw the Buckeyes on the hardwood, and then the very next time you see them on the hardwood, almost losing to Akron, then that's no disrespect to Akron. But this goes back to what I always talk about when it comes to this college football playoff, is certain teams are held to different standards. When you want to be the big dog, and Ohio State is the big dog in football, basketball, any sport out there, like when you are the Ohio State University, you shouldn't be letting anyone hang around with you within your state, especially with how they are branded and how they carry themselves and how they hold themselves. I mean, yes, it could be obnoxious to a lot of people out there. That's why Buckeye fans are as disliked as they are, because Ohio State's good. They know they're good, and their fans let you know about it. But when you are Ohio State, there comes expectations of, hey, nobody should be within an arm's reach of you. Akron should not have come close to beating them last night. This is the basketball side of things, right? And we know that. We all have that expectation for Buckeye basketball, and it's not just Buckeye basketball. We have that expectation for Buckeye football and for everything that we do. But it's not just an Ohio State thing. I'm trying to point out the hypocrisy and how this Bearcats thing is being viewed at by a lot of listeners, because at the end of the day, when you want to be the big dog, there comes expectations with being the big dog. You cannot sit here and tell people, we're the Ohio State University, we are the Buckeyes, and then you lose to Oral Roberts in the NCAA tournament. Okay, it's an upset. Upsets happen in the NCAA tournament all the time. It is what it is. Okay, but you almost get beat by Akron the very next time you're out there. Now, you got to fix it, all right? Not just because Akron's an Ohio team, but because you're the Ohio State University. You should not be hanging around with bad teams. Now, that is a credibility thing that Ohio State has built over the hundreds and hundreds of years, right? Like, that's not like an overnight thing. The Bearcats, they don't necessarily have that on the football side of things. Like, we don't look at the Bearcats as a traditional power, so we look at them differently. When Cincinnati in any other year, whether it be basketball, and they're a better basketball school than football. The football is, they've always been consistent football wise. This is obviously the peak of the football program for the Bearcats. Don't get me wrong, but no one looks at the Bearcats as a football power. So every football season during the college football season, if we see the Bearcats edged out a close win against Navy, we just think, oh man, okay, it's a good conference win. Okay. Oh, it's solid. Oh man, what a great finish to Cincinnati and Tulsa, man. That's what you want. You want 4 quarters of great, solid football. And that's the other argument, too, that you could say that the playoff has ruined college football to a certain extent because fans no longer enjoy close games. We judge the hell out of teams when they play teams close. Penn State is a 3-loss team. Ohio State and Penn State, that was a close ball game for a while. People were judging Ohio State. How could you be a top 4 team and yet you had a close heavyweight fight with Penn State? Because the college football playoff has conditioned us to expect top 4 teams to blow out everybody. I mean, if you're not being considered for a top 4 spot, then the gap between you and those top 4 teams being considered for the top 4 should be quite significant, right? So I get it. The Bearcats have never been held to the standard of us expecting them to kick ass to that point. But whether you like the rules or not, those rules exist for everybody. Oklahoma is expected to kick everyone's ass. And because they haven't, that's why they've had close games against Kansas. That Texas game was an instant classic. They came roaring back and took care of business. But because they didn't win convincingly, although it was a classic finish, they got punished for it. It is strange. To me, college football, the playoff is hurting the sport in that regards because it is no longer allowing great finishes to be enjoyed by fans. Do you think, and I'm not a Bearcat fan. It sounds like I'm a hater. I'm not. But there are Bearcat fans listening to the show right now. In all seriousness, if in any sport, you always want a close game, you want a great finish, you want to be entertained. The Bearcats, technically, that game was entertaining. They had a lead. They let it slip away. You were on the edge of your seat. You're biting your nails. You're nervous. You're sweating. You're pacing. You're drinking. You're doing whatever you can to cope with the game, right? That game was a heck of a game. Like Cincinnati, holding off Tulsa the way that they did, that finish, they had to go to the review to see if it was a touchdown or not. Like, that was one hell of a finish. But the playoff has conditioned us to look at that as, oh man, Cincinnati looked horrible. And that is unfortunate. That is an unfortunate fallout from this playoff, is that fans are now viewing games, good, close games. Ohio State, Nebraska, that was maybe an ugly game on Ohio State's part, but it was a close, it came down to the finish. Like, that's what we want in sports, right? We want it to come down to the finish. We want to be entertained. We want to tune into a good game. So you know what makes it tough? You want to know what makes it tough? It's tough because good games are no longer acceptable. That Texas-Oklahoma game was one of the best college football games of the season. And yet the team that won was punished for it. Right? How about Oklahoma starting out slow against Kansas? That was one hell of a game. It went all the way to the fourth quarter, right? The end of the fourth quarter. It took 4 full quarters to get a finish, which is what you want. If I'm going to pay a lot of money to go watch a college football or college basketball, and NBA, NFL, Major League Baseball, college baseball, whatever, I'm hoping that I'm entertained. And I haven't thought about it till now, and it just kind of hit me during that commercial break that, I'm all for the 14 playoff, but the playoff has it has ruined the fan experience for college football, because when you watch a good game, you're supposed to go home feeling like, man, that was one hell of a game, right? And Oklahoma fans were made to feel like crap because their team didn't blow out Kansas. It was one hell of a finish, though. You should be excited that your team came back and won. Do you think Oklahoma fans were feeling themselves when they came back to beat Kansas? For instance, Michigan's been bad the last couple of years. Ohio State, let's say Ohio State needed 4 full quarters to beat Michigan the last couple of years. Would we be sitting there like pumping our fists saying, man, that was a hell of a game. That was awesome. We'd be feeling bad about ourselves saying, yeah, I know it's a rivalry game. You got to throw records out the window, but man, that Ohio State played like crap. We didn't say it's a good game. We just say they played like crap. And that's what we do. So the playoff has ruined that. So the Bearcats, I feel bad for them because technically I am painting a picture as if the Bearcats have just been this crap team for 3 weeks. If you're a Bearcat fan, you should have been entertained against Navy. You should have felt good about that game. That, man, the Bearcats, they pulled away. They did what they needed to do to get a win at the end. And then Tulsa, it was sloppy throughout. Not sloppy, but again, I'm doing it again. I'm falling for it. I think that because it's close, they're playing sloppy, but maybe it's Tulsa playing, maybe it's Tulane playing well. Tulane is not looking at Cincinnati as just another conference team. They're looking at Cincinnati as, oh man, we got the number 4, number 5 team coming in, number 2 at that time. We got to be ready. So that's their Super Bowl. Ohio State's Nebraska's Super Bowl. Maryland, Rutgers, that's their Super Bowl, their national championship, right? Well, I keep forgetting, so I'll defend you Bearcat fans to this extent. Tulane sees Cincinnati coming in. That's their Super Bowl. So, of course, they're going to play up to that. Is it Cincinnati playing down, like I said, or is it Tulane playing up? How many times do we see teams rise to the occasion and get these big upset wins just to follow it with an embarrassing loss the very next week? Because that's not who they are. That means they played motivated, spirited football. They played into the moment, but that's not who they are. Because if that's who they are, that's who they would always be. Like Tulane playing up to Cincinnati, to them, Tulane doesn't, what I mean? Like Tulane's a mess. Tulsa's a mess. Tulsa scores first, and they led 7-0 against Ohio State. Remember that at the shoe? I was there. It was interesting. I was like, this is weird. Watching Akron just march the ball down the field. I'm sorry, I'm thinking of a different game. I apologize. But the Akron game, watching Akron march the ball down the field to score first on Ohio State. That's one of the most memorable experiences that those kids will ever have playing football at Akron. Is remember that night we played at Ohio State under the lights at the shoe, and we led 7-0. And we quieted the 110,000 seat shoe. Like, you know what I mean? Like, that's a memory for them. Well, their coach is fired. The program's in shambles. It's a mess. Tulsa, played well against Ohio State. And you're thinking, man, if Tulsa, how good is Tulsa? I mean, they're sitting there hanging with Ohio State into the fourth quarter. It was a 1-possession game in the fourth quarter. Tulsa has to be solid, right? Tulsa's been ass ever since. Like, they've not been good. So, that's what makes this tough. Is it has ruined college football. It's ruined the experience. That's the one thing I do like about college basketball is that even if, like last night, Flyer fans, you should not be hanging around with the UIC Flames. I made my little joke. So UIC, now I see why the Flyers won't play the Raiders, because they struggle to beat a bottom half of the Horizon League team. Imagine if they would have faced the number 2 team in the Horizon League in Wright State. No wonder they avoid them. I do think that they are afraid of Wright State, but whatever. That's really not what this is about. But the point is, Flyers, they should have blown out UIC. I don't want to hear about how young the team is. I don't want to hear about, everything's new to them. When you're the Dayton Flyers and you bring in the caliber of talent that you do, you don't get the benefit of the doubt of most teams that, they're just a young team. No, because the gap between what you're supposed to be in the UIC Flames, you should not be down 7 at the half. You should not need 2 full halves, 40 full minutes to keep UIC an arm's length away. UIC, that might be one of their highlights of the entire season right there, was being up on the Flyers at halftime. They're not a good basketball team. But the Flyers, the fans, that didn't hurt you guys last night. You got to win. The Flyer fans got to win. The Flyers got to win, and that's all that matters. Because you lose to UIC, that's a problem. Playing UIC close, it doesn't hurt the Flyers. Because if the Flyers go to these invitationals and they beat the big teams and they have a good resume heading into A10 play, no one's going to remember that they were down at half against UIC. That's why basketball is so fun. The end results of games don't necessarily make or break you. I think, the margin of error for a team like the Flyers is a lot smaller than the Duke, Ohio State, and others for obvious reasons. But the Flyers could afford to lose a game here and there, and their whole season's not in shambles. In college football, the Bearcats, they're undefeated. All right, the Dayton Flyers were down 7 against a really bad UIC team out of the lowly Horizon League, right? Those are playing by your rules. A10 looks down on the Horizon League. You Flyer fans make fun of the Horizon League. It's a crap conference. But, hey, when you're down 7 at half, it's, we're young. And, my golly, it's been 600 days since we're in the arena. These guys are, they were just, they were blown away by the atmosphere of UD Arena. You guys you crack me up. You guys really, you do your thing. You guys know how to play the game. You fans know how to move them damn goalposts. I tell you that much. Bottom line is they had no business being in the game with UIC. I don't care if it's game 1. It's game 1 for UIC as well. Why is it that, and I always crack up with that theory, by the way, that, a team like the Flyers, that they struggle in game 1 because it's game 1. Well, the team with more talent should not be playing down to the team with less talent because it's game one for that team too. So how come they're not playing poorly? They're the ones that have everything against them. I mean, Neil Sullivan, the athletic director, does everything he can to protect this team. This team, the fans crack me up. Well, I saw someone say, I think it was Spoon, that said, oh, man, they lose this game a year ago in front of no fans. Well, that's great that the fans help and all, but you need to have a team that's mentally strong enough to actually win games with or without someone cheering for them. I mean, how weak of a team do you have to be that you need someone to cheer for you to go win a basketball game? Because they did lose a lot of games last year, and I pointed that out. I'm like, you could tell just how important the Flyer faithful are because that's really what propels them over the top. And when they don't have them, they don't have that same juice, that same fire, which is a problem. Make fun of Wright State all you want for not having fans at the Nutter Center, but at least that team doesn't need people cheering them on to go do their damn jobs. I'm sorry if I sound critical, but I just don't like lazy excuses like that. Like, oh man, well, the fans are why they won last night. Yes, home court advantage. But UIC didn't have fans at that game. They barely have fans at their home games. They don't need to have fans for them to go play hard. So I don't like that excuse of, well, the Flyers struggle when they don't have fans. That's a lazy excuse. Then that's a problem. Then those players need to find, if those players need someone cheering for them to motivate them to play hard, I don't know what to tell you. Because y'all make fun of Wright State for nobody going to their damn basketball games, but yet they play hard every night. They don't need someone cheering them on to be able to go do their job. So you got me off on a whole other tangent right now, so I need to get back to the point at hand. The point at hand is the Flyers could struggle against a team like the UIC Flames, but yet they can go on to beat these good teams. No one's going to remember about the UIC Flames on early November come March. No one cares. No one gives a rip. But in college football, same thing happened with Cincinnati. They're hanging down there with Tulsa. They're hanging down there with Tulane. They're hanging down there with Navy. And they're held more accountable for it than college basketball. Now, you get more games, you get more teams in, so that's why. But there you go. 518-1410, it's the Justin Kinner Show with Kev Nash. Mine is Kev Nash here on 1410 ESPN Radio. Yeah, I got to go back through and check through all these posts to make sure I'm getting back to all you guys. So again, the phone lines are officially open again. I'm going to get you guys in line and take your calls on the other side. It's the Justin Kinner Show with Kev Nash. Mine is Kev Nash. Don't go anywhere.
It's the Justin Kinner Show with Kev Nash.
Justin, you're awesome, baby.
Right here on 1410 ESPN Radio.
O'Reilly. When you need auto parts, O'ReillyAuto.com is just a few clicks away. We offer convenient options for you to get your parts quickly. Order online and pick up for free at your local O'Reilly Auto Parts store. We'll even bring it out curbside. Or you can have your parts delivered right to your door with free shipping on most orders over $35. Visit O'ReillyAuto.com.
O'Reilly Auto Parts.
If you need new roofing, siding, or gutters, skylights, or patio enclosures, if you're a homeowner or business and need someone you can trust, don't take a chance. Enhance with Lance. Lance Roofing and Siding in Fairborn has been satisfying customers since 1993 and hold an A+ rating with the Better Business Bureau. Lance Roofing and Siding, 8460 Dayton Springfield Road in Fairborn. Call for a free estimate at 864-2722. That's 864-2722 or online at lanceroofing.com.
If you are push mowing your yard using an inefficient lawn tractor or your current zero turn spends more time in the shop than mowing your grass, it's time you look at the Hustler Zero Turn Lawnmower. Residential mowers from Hustler are built like tanks and drive like sports cars. All Hustler mowers have fabricated welded steel decks. Don't settle on cheap units with flimsy stamped decks from big box stores. See Small Engine Service Pros and we'll guide you to the right mower for your property and your budget. 2030 North Dayton Lakeview Road, Route 235 in New Carlisle.
Hey, here to tell you about my friends at Cordell Transportation. They're now hiring Class A CDL drivers and offering a $5,000 sign-on bonus. That's right, a $5,000 sign-on bonus. Home daily, dedicated lanes, and no-touch freight. Brand new equipment as well. Medical, dental, vision, and company-paid life insurance. Call Cody right now. Apply online at CordellTransportation.com. Cordell Transportation, driven to succeed.
I love my family. They're funny, sweet, smart. They even smell nice. But I hate holiday shopping for them. But ho, 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 not anymore. Because I discovered the perfect holiday gift for my entire family. Skechers. Skechers have affordable, comfortable shoes that will make checking off your gift list easy as pumpkin pie. The kids go crazy for them. They have shoes that light up and sparkle, shoes that slip on and off, shoes that look cool. Forget about toys this year. Skechers are just as fun and no assembly required. And they're not just for kids. Adults love them too. They've got cozy slippers, comfy winter boots, sneakers for walking, running, outdoors, exercise, and all sorts of work footwear. Or if you're lucky enough to play golf, yep, Skechers has those too. And they all have the exclusive fits and features your family will love. They've got relax fit, wide fit, stretch fit, arch fit, and even max cushioning that feels like you're walking on clouds. Plus, they come with Skechers' exclusive air-cooled memory foam for ultimate comfort. And they're machine washable. So this year, give Skechers to everyone. Find them at a Skechers store, Skechers.com, or wherever stylish footwear is sold.
If you're on Medicare and have questions about health and drug coverage options, join the Ohio Department of Insurance at a Medicare event near you. Learn about Medicare open enrollment, financial assistance programs, and important deadlines. Everyone on Medicare should review their health and drug plan options. Annual open enrollment runs October 15th through December 7th, and new plan coverage begins January 1st. Visit insurance.ohio.gov or call 1-800-686-1578 to find an event near you.
Napa know-how.
When you buy the Napa bag for 99 cents, you'll get 20% off 3 or more items. No other bag saves you 20% on wipers, premium oil, headlamps, and more, which makes the Napa bag the best bag in the world. Sorry, handbags, man bags, punching bags, bagpipes, and even you, bags under the eyes. Quality parts, helpful people. That's Napa know-how.
Napa know-how.
At participating locations does not include taxes and fees. Advertised sale price not available in some states. Offer ends 11/30/21.
You know a spot, but not just a spot, the spot. Actually, with the all-new Nissan Frontier, you know a bunch of them. But the key to these great spots? Being able to reach them in the first place. Your spot is out there. Find your Frontier in the all-new 2022 Nissan Frontier with standard 310 horsepower, advanced tech, and 281 pound-foot of torque.
Your home for fun, food, sports, and spirits is also the home for value. Frickers! Frickers' everyday values begin on Monday with boneless frickin' chicken wings. Tuesday offers traditional frickin' chicken wings. On Wednesday, enjoy a steak dinner. And on Thursday, frickin' chicken chunks. Kids eat free every day. And your favorite events are on TVs everywhere. The home for everyday values is the home for fun, food, sports, and spirits. Frickers!
Liberty Mutual customizes your car and home insurance so you only pay for what you need.
Liberty, 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 liberty.
Football fans, the Sunday morning tailgate show is officially back. Every Sunday morning starting at 11:30 a.m., College Football Hall of Famer Keith Byers and Justin Kinner will be live at Frickers on 741 by the Dayton Mall. The guys will recap the biggest games from college football Saturday, including your Ohio State Buckeyes. The guys will also get you set up for the day's biggest NFL matchups, featuring your Cleveland Browns, Cincinnati Bengals, and more. It's the Sunday morning tailgate show, live from Frickers on 741, Sunday mornings at 11:30 on 1410 ESPN Radio.
All right, we are back. I'm Justin Kinner, hanging out with you here today. So last night, the college basketball season tipped off. The Dayton Flyers, a 10-point win against the UIC Flames out of the Horizon League. They trailed by 7 at the half, and I'm not bringing that up to troll. I'm bringing it up because, I had people coming at me in the chat section regarding Wright State and other things. And, of course, I'm one of the few media guys in town that actually, makes it a point to talk about Wright State. I don't just slap them in, in the show just to slap them in there. I don't hide them behind some newscast. I actually care, and I actually make sure we give them some love because, hey, they're a D1 basketball program too. They win a lot of games as well. In fact, they've been to just as many NITs and NCAA tournament appearances as the Flyers since Anthony Grant got there. So I'd say they're playing pretty damn even. Are the rosters even? No, they're not. But again, all that matters is NCAA tournaments, tournament wins, that type of thing. So keep that in mind. I want to bring this up. So Doug Toby says if Wright State loses to UIC, does that make Wright State trash? Be careful what you say, Aaron Rodgers. Well, I don't know what Aaron Rodgers has to do with this. But let's be clear. I don't know why you Flyer fans do this. You always try to put the thing is, I've never once said that Wright State is UD. What I have tried to say many times is that UD is not as far advanced as what you guys think that they are. I'm not hating. I have so many people say, man, you got to be careful. The Flyer fans are your listeners, and you're constantly bashing them. I'm not bashing them, but I'm treating them the way I treat every team that I talk about. I just have my opinion on them. And my opinion on them is that the program, the fans more so. See, my problem is the fans that I butt heads with, I take my dislike for them sometimes and I put it on the program, which really gets me in trouble. Let's just be real. I have nothing against Anthony Grant. I have nothing against the damn Flyers program. But you got these delusional fans that have these big time crazy takes that puts me over the edge. So then I have to sit there, and then it's like it forces me to say things about the program and about the coaches that I don't really have any ill will towards anybody. But I come across as this horrible person. I come across as this big bully. I come across as this guy just saying crazy things to get ratings, whatever. Y'all told me no one's Flyer fans ain't going to listen anyway. So why does it matter? Flyer fans don't listen to the show. So if I say something bad about them, why does it matter? Right? Your rules, not mine. I just play by them. Point is this, I point out when the Dayton Flyers have some flaws. I don't think that they've capitalized on the Obi Toppin year that well. I thought that last year was a complete train wreck. I thought it was a disaster. I thought that the team last year was actually too talented. People by the end of the year saying, well, this isn't the team that was there in 2020. I know it wasn't. And, it took how many decades before that 2020 team showed up and actually resembled anything close to what we saw from the Flyers decades and decades ago, competing in a national championship game. Those teams don't come around very often. So I'm not holding last year's team to that 2020 team. I'm holding last year's team to the standard of what they should have been when you had an Ibby Watson, when you had a Jalen Crutcher, when you had Chimunga, you had size, you had shooters, you had scores, you had everything. And they flat out underperformed. And why is it when I'm pointing out what's actually going on, I'm just considered a hater when you as Flyer fans should have been pointing out the same thing? And last night, with all the hype coming into the season, with all the talk about this team, and with as much as you guys bash Wright State in the Horizon League, you have no business hanging around with the Horizon League team. I'm sorry, you don't. Your rules, not mine. Every one of my opinions has been conditioned by you. By you, the Flyer fans. Your crazy, absurd takes on how horrible Wright State is and how horrible the Horizon League is. That's not my opinion. That's your opinion. So every time you bash that conference, every time you bash that team, every time you play one of those schools and you're hanging around with them, that's why I said last night, UIC, now I see why UD won't play Wright State. They're down 7 against a bottom half of the Horizon League team at halftime. What do you think that score is against an actual good team out of that conference like Wright State? They played Northern Kentucky last year. You needed an entire 40 minutes with Jalen Crutcher, with Ibby Watson, with Chimunga, with that experienced group from the year before. You needed 40 full minutes to beat them last year. I'm not hating. I am simply pointing out that I get tired of how much you guys bash the team I like, the team I follow, the team I support. You guys bash them. So I simply counter it with your rules. And then all of a sudden you don't like it. And basically Doug Tobey's saying that, I need to be careful what I say. I don't need to be careful with what I say. I don't regret what I say. I mean what I say. And what I say is I'm basing it off of what you guys say. You guys told me how bad Wright State is. I didn't say that. You did. You told me how bad that Horizon League conference is. I didn't think that or say that. You did. So I take your opinions and I spin them back to you. And so you guys need to be careful what you say. You guys need to stop trying to convince me that I'm stupid because I follow a program that not a lot of people pay attention to in this town, which, that does suck for them. I completely get that, but I do understand. I have no clue where it became a thing if you could only support one and not the other. Because when I first started doing this job, I had no problem. I used to go cover every single Dayton Flyers game. I would be at every single Wright State Raiders game. I would go watch every single game and cover every single one. And, I get when I'm going to these UD games and I hear the local media in town making their stupid comments about the other team in town and all that stuff. Yes, I get ticked off about that. Yes, I get defensive about that. When if Wright State has a tough loss, you guys jump on them the second that you can. You guys ate that up last year when they gave up that 24-point lead with 6 minutes and 15 seconds. You guys love that, Flyer fans. You guys couldn't wait to let the Raiders hear about it. But where were you when you lost to Fordham and when you lost to LaSalle and you got beat in the NIT again? I mean, what? Come on. Like, I'm not against this comes across as I hate the Flyers. I do not. This is me battling you. And in the process of me battling you, the Flyer fan, I have created a rift between me and the precious University of Dayton. Anthony Grant doesn't like my opinions. He won't come on the show. SID, love the guy, great at his job. There's a wall up between me and the coaches and all that stuff, all because I'm simply going at you guys. All because I'm simply arguing with you about your takes on the program. You try to convince me that, hey, they're number 3 in the country in 2020, that's who they are and that's who they're gonna be. And then a year later, when they're barely beat, they can't even beat Fordham and they can't even beat LaSalle. Then when I point that out, that, hey, what happened? You guys told me that this program is so good and that I know nothing, but then you guys don't ever come back and say, oh yeah, I was off. Yeah, the team's struggling. If all you guys have to do is just say, yeah, we're struggling this year, we can meet halfway here. But half the time, all you guys like to do is make fun of the other school in town. And I ain't gonna put up with that. So I stand my ground. I've been consistent from day one since I've got here. Y'all the ones that keep moving the goalpost, not me. Not me. I've never once said that Wright State is Dayton. Dayton has the bigger fan base, obviously. The name of the city is the name of their school. This city is theirs. No doubt about it. No one at Wright State will tell you otherwise. No one at Wright State believes that you guys owe them anything. Nobody. I love that. Someone in the chat section last night said, oh, UD owes Wright State nothing. I'm looking around like, who the hell said they did? Find me a Wright State representative that said that UD owes us something. No, UD doesn't owe him a damn thing, but Wright State's not asking for anything. I don't really want to get into the whole they should play, should not play. That's over that. I mean, it is solidified that program is a chicken blank program when it comes to facing that program, Wright State. And when I watch what I watched last night, I now get it. You struggle with UIC, who's a bottom half of the league team. So I get why you do not want to put a Wright State on the schedule. It makes sense. You're not disrespecting Wright State by not putting them on the schedule. You're actually respecting them because you are continuously showing Neil Sullivan and company. You're continuously showing that you don't mind putting Horizon League schools on your schedule. You like to put bad Horizon League schools on your schedule. So Flyer fans, your own program is telling you how good that they are because they won't put them on the schedule because, UMass Lowell, UIC, we've seen Detroit come in over the years. Those are the teams that they love putting on the schedule. I know UMass Lowell's not a Horizon League school, but they love putting look at that schedule at UD Arena this year. It's bad. Got a couple SEC teams, which I've always said, by the way, I don't believe, if I'm Neil Sullivan and company, I don't need to go overboard bringing these big teams to UD Arena because you guys sell that dang thing out every single night because UD has a special program that you fans go watch them. You don't need them to bring someone in special to get your ass in the seats at UD Arena. I've always complimented them for that, but you guys don't hear that. You just like to take what I say and run with it and call me a hater. It is what it is. Yes, I am going on a long rant here. I do not care. These are the days that Kev needs to be here to kind of put a muzzle on me, right? He ain't here today. I'm off and running on my own. So that's all I got to say about that. But last night, when the Flyer fans all got ticked off at me because I made my little joke about, UIC, now I see why they won't play Wright State. But honestly, your program is telling you the same thing I'm telling you. When I say, now I see why they play UIC and they won't play Wright State. Wright State's the actual good team out of that conference. That's why they won't play them, because they only play bad teams out of that conference. That's your program telling you that, not me. Because if you guys tell me how bad Wright State is, well, if Neil Sullivan and company believed that Wright State was that bad, they would put them on the schedule. But they don't because they worry about losing. Wright State finished higher than UD in the Ken Palm last year. That's not an opinion. That's a fact. Now you're probably saying, who cares about the Ken Palm? You do. That 2020 year? Oh, Ken Palm this, Ken Palm that. Couldn't put your pom-poms down. You couldn't stop talking about the Ken Palm. But when I bring up the Ken Palm when it's not relevant to you, oh, man, we got to move that damn goalpost now. So there's that. Believe it or not, I am pulling for the Flyers. I want Anthony Grant's class coming in. I want those guys to work, man. Like, I'm a big fan of Deron Holmes coming in. I watched him in high school. I was a big fan when he committed to UD. I'm not hating on that. I don't dislike the players. I don't dislike Anthony Grant. Some of y'all just drive me crazy with your hypocrites. That's all. I just don't like hypocrites. I don't like Browns fans who are hypocrites. I don't like Bengals fans who are hypocrites. When I'm a hypocrite, I get mad at myself for that. I don't believe I'm being a hypocrite here because Doug Toby, when you say something along the lines of, if Wright State lost to UIC, does that make them a trash program? I didn't even say UD was a trash program. You're the one putting words in my mouth. All I'm saying is that based on your standards of that program, based on how you paint that program to me, is that there's Ohio State and then there's UD. Well, Ohio State got ripped today for almost losing to Akron, because Ohio State is expected to be, at the very least, double digits better than any team that they faced in Ohio, including your precious Dayton Flyers. And Ohio State has those same expectations for themselves, and that program doesn't have an identity crisis problem. They actually know who they are, and they know it's embarrassing to almost lose to Akron. They know it's embarrassing losing to Oral Roberts last year, or whoever the heck they played. So the bottom line is Ohio State, they know who they are. And when they do get upset and embarrassed, they know why that's embarrassing. They know why that so many people are criticizing them. They don't sit up and try to make excuses and say, well, that's a very good team. I know they have to tell the media that Oral Roberts, is a very good team. But you think people behind closed doors at Ohio State are like, man, that Oral Roberts team, that team was pretty good. And how about Akron? I mean, if that team went toe-to-toe with us, they're easily a top 25 team. No, they will tell you that they did not play well. And it's okay to say you did not play well. I just can't stand when fans start telling me stupid things like, oh, well, it's the first night. They stepped foot at UD Arena in front of 13,000 fans, and they were just They were starstruck. They couldn't believe it. It took them a while to get into the game. Stop. These 17, 18-year-olds, they step foot in bigger arenas for bigger programs and with more spotlight on them. Last night's game was on ESPN Plus. All the true freshmen that are playing at Duke and Kentucky, that's on ESPN. All eyes on them, bigger arenas, more eyes. I mean, more pressure, more expectations, and they play through it just fine. So now, see, this is what I mean. The fans are coming at me with these excuses. I combat them. Now it's forced me to sound like I'm bashing the team, and it's coming across that way, and I can't really get out of that. But I'm not anti-UD. I promise you, I'm not. I don't dislike UD. I just don't like lame excuses that the fans give me is all. So I'm just playing by your rules. You told me how bad that conference is. So if that conference is that bad, why is your team down 7 at half? Why do you need 40 full minutes to edge out a 10-point win against UIC? You should be way better than that. When you have the top recruiting class ever coming in, you have all these great athletes. You have a transfer from Georgia. You have all these Power 5 athletes. Anthony Grant, he's going to coach everybody up. And by the way, he does. I will never deny that. That's all I'm saying is I think if truth serum, you ask those athletes, they'll never tell you to your face that, oh, yeah, we're embarrassed by how we hung around with UIC. But they're embarrassed that they hung around with UIC. And if they played Wright State and the game was close, they would be embarrassed by that as well. And that's okay. Just acknowledge that that's who you are, and that's totally fine. But doesn't mean that people aren't going to bring up the fact that you played them close when you shouldn't have. So there's that. Anyways, my rant is over. Ann Anderson on Facebook says, Justin, I so agree. What a concept. Maybe UD and Wright State should pick a local high school gym. Neutral ground would be a great game. Give each team an equal number of tickets. Ann, the logic of that matchup happening has been thrown out the window. It won't happen. We had two horrible tragedies in this city that if there was ever a time for the egos of one particular university to put it to the side to let both teams play one another for charity, that was the time to do it. And if they couldn't put their ego aside for those particular, between the tornadoes and the unfortunate shootings at the Oregon District, if the egos could not have been put aside for that, it'll never happen. It'll never happen. That matchup will never happen. Not in my lifetime. Not in my lifetime. I don't hate UD. Doesn't mean that I'm going to hold punches on things I'm critical of. Doug Toby said, or Charles Mitchell said they'll never play, period. I agree. The reasoning is pathetic. I think it's cowardly. I think it's wrong. And if that bothers people, it's just too damn bad. Now, you're mad because that's your team and you agree with it, but I promise you, if the roles were reversed, you guys say the same thing. Why won't Ohio State play us? Oh, Ohio State, they're afraid to come play us. That's why they won't play us. You don't notice the parallel there? Because the gap between Wright State and UD, the talent gap is a lot closer than the gap between UD and Ohio State. That's not an opinion. It's a duh thing. And that doesn't make UD a bad program. But my point is that doesn't make Wright State a bad program either. Wright State's not UD. The Horizon League is not the A-10. What's a good win for Wright State may not necessarily be a good win for UD, and what's a close game for Wright State may not be a bad close game for them, but it is viewed as a bad close game for UD. And that's a good thing, by the way. If playing UIC close is a bad thing, that's a good thing for your program because that means you have a lot higher expectations. That's not a shot at Wright State, but Wright State's not at the same level as UD, and nor are they pretending to be, nor are they telling anybody that they are. It is what it is, folks. But you can't sit here and tell everyone how great you are and how great the program is and how awesome they are and how good they are and how they need to be playing Ohio State, that Ohio State needs to play them, that, Xavier's afraid to play them, Ohio State's afraid to play. Ohio State they play at Cincinnati. Ohio State plays at Xavier. They're playing at Xavier coming up, by the way. All right. Cincinnati plays at Northern Kentucky. Cincinnati just signed a 3-1 deal, by the way. I know it had a lot to do with the fact that Northern Kentucky allowed them to use BB&T Arena. But the point is that if they were firmly against playing at Northern Kentucky, they'd get out of it. They wouldn't do it. But they signed the contract. They're doing it. And every excuse that is used for why the two don't play here in town could be used for Cincinnati and Northern Kentucky. They're so close. They don't, Bearcats don't want to put fans at BB&T Arena. It's a waste of a game. They're losing a home game if they do that. Cincinnati owes Northern Kentucky nothing. Okay, I don't think Northern Kentucky believes that the Bearcats owe them anything. Ohio State doesn't owe UD anything. Oh, they're afraid. You see how it's the same scenario, though. You're the little brother to them. You're big brothering Wright State. You have no problem being the bully, but when you get bullied, you want to cry victim. And that is not okay with me whatsoever. I'm fine with both schools not playing. I'm not fine with the reasons for why they don't play. Simple as that. 518-1410. Phone lines are open. They are all blinking now. Shaw, I think you just said you tried to call in. They're open. I have the phone next to me now. I'm going to take calls during this break, and we'll get you guys on. Enough of me rambling. Let's hear from you. 518-1410. Don't go anywhere.
It's the Justin Kinner Show with Kev Nash, presented by Orion Sports Medicine.
O'Reilly. Don't miss See Better, Drive Safer month at O'Reilly Auto Parts with great deals on wiper blades, headlight bulbs, and more. Right now, get up to a $20 gift card after mail-in rebate with the purchase of select Sylvania bulbs. Plus, earn double O Rewards points with your purchase. Get ready for the weather ahead during See Better, Drive Safer month at O'Reilly Auto Parts.
O'Reilly Auto Parts.
5G is here, but the big carriers want you to sign a pricey long-term contract to get in on the action. Well, no more, because Straight Talk Wireless has rolled out 5G coverage nationwide, with plans starting at just $35 a month with no contract. And get a Samsung Galaxy A32 5G for only $299, all on America's best networks. 5G coverage, 5G phones, less money. Straight Talk Wireless, no contract, no compromise. 5G capable device required, actual availability, coverage, and speed may vary.
Looking for a career and not just a job? Then Dayton Progress is looking for you. Dayton Progress is the leading international manufacturer of tools and tooling components for the metal stamping industries and has immediate openings for their entry-level machinists. No prior experience is required, and Dayton Progress will train you, starting with the basics. They offer competitive wages starting at $15 per hour and up to $18 per hour with prior experience. New hires are eligible for merit increases after 90 days of employment. They also offer private health care, including vision and dental, free life insurance, a contributory 401k, promotions from within, company service recognition, and 100% tuition reimbursement to local state colleges. Dayton Progress is a great place to work and has been a Dayton landmark for over 70 years. Apply today by emailing your resume to jobs@DaytonProgress.com. That's jobs@DaytonProgress.com. Dayton Progress is an equal opportunity employer.
From city streets to back roads, from road warrior to carpooler, there are some things you can always count on, like the reliability, durability, and power of DieHard, America's most trusted auto battery. No matter where your journey takes you, count on DieHard to get you started on the road ahead. Available at your local Advance Auto Parts and participating CarQuest stores.
When getting the job done right is job one, you need construction equipment that's built right. From compact track loaders to the world's #1 selling compact excavator, the Kubota construction lineup features durable Kubota engines, more comfort, and the versatility to do it all and do it right. Visit your local Kubota dealer today. Go to KubotaUSA.com for full disclaimer.
See Columbus Equipment Company, 7570 New Carlisle Pike in Dayton.
Mucinex DM's bilayer tablet allows for immediate and extended release, relieving both wet and dry coughs and loosening chest congestion for 12 hours. Available at Walmart.
We're live. We're local.
What are you gonna miss? He struck him up.
We're Dayton's ESPN radio station. Now, let's send it to the WING studios for Dayton's only local sports talk show. It's the Justin Kinner Show with Kev Nash, presented by Orion Sports Medicine.
Hour 2, we are back. Justin Kinner with you here on 1410 ESPN Radio. Dayton's ESPN radio station, 1410 Wing AM. 518-1410, that's the number. Yes, I'm being labeled as the biggest Flyers hater right now. I'm really not. I don't hate the Flyers. I don't hate the coach. I don't hate the program. I'm getting into it with particular fans. So you guys got to stop labeling me as this hater because of the arguments I get in with fans and because of takes that I have. Just because I have a take that you don't agree with doesn't mean I'm a hater. Like that's just the lazy. Like that's what we do in life, by the way. When we come up with these nicknames to discredit things that put our narrative to rest, like the whole fake news thing. If you say fake news, that's your way of ignoring any true facts that get put in front of you to discredit your view on something. The term woke now, by the way, when you really think about what woke is, whatever your definition of that is, we've come up with the term woke so that anytime someone calls us out on something or tries to bring something to the table that, needs to be addressed, we just say, oh, you're just being woke. And that's what we do to discredit what they're trying to say, to create a space between us and whatever's being said that we don't like, right? Like, that's what we do. So when someone says something that makes sense, we just say, oh, they're just being woke. Like forgetting the fact that what they're saying actually might have a little, substance to it, right? Now let's give it a title and make them feel like they're the crazy ones and keep them at an arm's length. That's what we do. News comes to us with facts and with scientific evidence. What do we say? It's fake news. Any news that puts something in front of us that actually discredits what we think and believe, it's fake news. That's how we get away with it. When someone tells you facts about your team that you don't like, that person's an idiot. He's just a hater. Kinner's a hater. I'm a hater for saying that you should not be hanging around with the UIC Flames based on your perception of the program. That's all. And just so you know, I have two friends that played at UD that I'm really close with, actually. And I just got text messages from both, right in the middle of that last segment that said, they got my back. They understand where I'm coming from. They don't take anything I say, to heart at all, that they know it's not really labeling all UD fans as that way. It's not labeling the program a particular way. It's literally taking your take and countering it. That's all. Yeah. So I'm just saying, like, not everyone there. And that's what cracks me up, too, is like, so I get into this with Browns Bengals fans all the time. I don't care. I'm going to pump my chest here. There's a former MVP in the National Football League and a Hall of Famer for a particular team that has reached out to me on more than one occasion saying that due to their roles with this particular team, they cannot say what they truly feel about the team, but they agree with me. And they love what I'm saying, and they just wish that they could say what I'm saying, but that would put their relationship with a particular team in jeopardy. So that's my favorite thing in the world. When fans get mad at me for saying particular things that are actually correct, you label it as I'm being a hater. You don't actually listen to the reasoning for why I'm saying it. You just label it as, you just credit what I say as I'm a hater. But what's funny is that the people that the real people I'm worried about upsetting are the ones actually reaching out saying, hey man, we love that you're saying that. Like, we would love to say that too, but we can't go against our own team. We can't say that about our team. So the fact that I have quite a few former Flyers who have reached out during this segment to say that they, agreed to a certain extent about the Wright State thing, that speaks volumes. The fact that I've had former pro athletes that have played for a particular team at the highest of levels reach out to me and say, man, you're saying exactly what I want to say. I just can't. Keep up the good work. That makes me feel like $1 million, because those are the people that are, that I'm like, oh man, those guys are going to hate me. Nah, I'm saying what they want to say, but they don't want to, they don't want people to get mad at them. People are always mad at me. When I first started this job, I thought that this job was cool. I was like, man, we're going to talk sports. Everyone loves sports. That means we're all going to get along. We're all going to just love each other for our sports opinion. My goodness. Your opinion on a sports team could be as divisive as whether or not you got the damn vaccine. An opinion on a sports team could be as divisive as who you voted for. I mean, a certain sports opinion could be as divisive as, do you believe in God or not? I mean, it's unbelievable. As I always say, it's sports talk. It's not religion. It's not politics. It's sports talk. It drives me crazy. But to the Facebook feed we go, and then to the phone calls. Jake Mellon on Facebook says, dude, you really just said they didn't capitalize on the OB year. COVID took care of that one, dude. You are definitely a Flyers hater, and that's okay. Embrace it. No, I don't believe they've capitalized on the OB year. I just don't. To be fair, I don't believe that the Flyers' #1 recruiting class in program history, that right there is an example of a fallout from the OB year. So to be fair, yes, they've capitalized on it from that perspective. Would they have got Deron Holmes? Would they have got some of these guys to come here if it wasn't for that magical year with Obi Toppin? I don't know. But I do know this. Last year, I don't think it was that wrong of me to be critical of a team that had a Jalen Crutcher. Like, basically, I'm acknowledging you and saying that your team was really, really good. But I should be allowed to be critical of a team that had a Jalen Crutcher, that had an Ibby Watson and a Chimunga. And actually, they had the, guys from Michigan, and you had these guys from the Big Ten. You had all these transfer players. You had Jalen freaking Crutcher. The big debate was, man, did Jalen make Obi or Obi make Jalen? I mean, there was so much talent on that roster last year. Even if no one expected them to be as good as the 2020 team. But that team definitely should not have been down there in the basement losing to teams like Fordham and LaSalle and others and St. Joe's or whoever it was last year. I mean, like, come on. Like, that's the thing. When I say those things, I'm like, well, shouldn't they agree with me? I'm being critical of that team for losing to teams they shouldn't. Shouldn't that fan base agree with me? Like, I feel like we should all be on the same page when I'm saying that. It's not like, they won the conference last year and made it to the Sweet 16. And here I am saying, yeah, they haven't capitalized on anything yet. No. I don't think I'm that far off in saying that. I'm not being a hater. I think that's just common sense, Jake. And don't use COVID as an excuse, because you know what? Every team had to experience COVID last year. And you know what? There was a national champion crowned. How come that team that won a national championship, why were they able to figure it out? Not that I was expecting the Flyers to win a national championship, but 68 teams made the NCAA tournament last year. How come 68 teams were able to figure it out, but your season was not good because of COVID? And I'll wait for that response, because once again, let me guess, I'm a hater. It's a good response. I caught you in it, and now you're just going to say I'm a hater. And it's fine. I just told you what we did. Anthony Bauer on Facebook says, Kinner, UIC is D1, Lake Erie is D2, and Wright State was struggling with them in the first half. What's that say about the Raiders? The Raiders were up 20 at half. What are you talking about? Wright State was up 20 at half. And by the way, to be fair here, I despise when Wright State puts D2 teams on the schedule. I think that it makes them look bad. But I also know that university has an obligation to try to provide as many home games as possible. But this is another little phantom theory out there. Like I hear Neil Sullivan say all the time, it's just so tough to schedule. It's so tough to get teams to come to UD Arena. And I hate when it's phrased that way, because what it is it sounds like an uppity way of saying that we are just so good that nobody will come here. We can't get anybody to come to the UD Arena because we're so good. When really, that's not what it is. I mean, UD is really good, by the way. And the last thing you want to do is go play UD at UD in front of 13,000 fans. You are right. That is a thing. It is, not a lot of teams are lining up to go play at UD Arena. But as I've said in years past, that's not a UD thing. That is a non-Power 5 thing. No one is lining up and knocking on doors to go play at an A10 school. It's not a UD thing. It's all of the A10. As if people are knocking on the door to go play at Fordham. People are going to go, oh, man, Florida. They're like, we got to play at LaSalle this year, man. Great, great little high school looking gymnasium there. I can't wait to go play that. No. Like, that's not a UD. Like, you're not special because nobody doesn't want to come play here. Nobody wants to go play there. So Wright State playing a D2 school last night. Had they, like, let's say that Bob Grant and Coach Scott Nagy said, you know what, we're going to make it a rule from moving on. We will not play D2 schools anymore. You fans, will you credit them for that? No, because you know what you'll do then? Look at Wright State. They can't even get home games. Well, how come when their athletic director, Bob Grant, does a great job? How come when Bob Grant says, well, man, it's tough to get teams to come play at the Nutter Center. How come you guys don't listen to that and say, how come you guys can't sympathize with that? It's because you then realize, oh, well, maybe it's not that no one wants to come play us because we're this, big time program that everyone's afraid of. Maybe it's just because we have 2 non-Power 5 programs that Power 5 programs don't look at and say, we got to go play there. Because the second UD does get to that Power 5 conference, and I know it's only a matter of time before it happens. I don't know what's taking so long. The fact that you've sold out every single home game this year, they are a ratings hit, whether it's radio, whether it's television. I'm acknowledging the greatness of the program and the greatness of Dayton basketball. I'm not saying that they're not special. I know that they're special, but the thing is, what the hell's taking so long? But the second that they get there, you will see a lot better non-conference games at that arena. Until then, you got to settle for the UICs. You got to settle for a lot of these because, well, UD goes and pays those schools. Now, why does UD pay those schools to come here? Because they're a bigger program with more money, more resources than Wright State. Wright State can't afford to go pay those schools to come in. Now, on top of that, it's not just because Wright State has financial issues, which, by the way, has nothing to do with the athletics program in itself. Like, that's a school education side issue that everyone, like, I love when people say that, man, if I'm Coach Nagy, I wouldn't want to stay there with all the financial issues. What, is he a professor? Is he the head of the psychology department? What that has nothing to do with him. Hell, he's the highest paid dude at that damn place. If anything, I'd love to stay there. It's like, well, if this boat's sinking and all the resources are coming to me, the more power to you. No, that has nothing to do with that. But no, Horizon League school, nah, they're not paying people to go play there. They got to, rely on other teams willing to come there. So if Wright State wanted to put that D2 team on the schedule last night, they wouldn't have had a game to tip off last night. They could have maybe found a road opponent, but again, they have a lot of road games. They don't have a lot of home games. Then you rip them for not getting home games. But how come when they don't get home games, do Flyer fans say, yeah, well, in their defense, it's tough to get teams to come play at the Nutter Center? No, because then that would devalue your athletic director who puts in the paper all the time of, man, it's just so tough to get teams to come play here, as if it's as if it's an isolated issue. It's not an isolated issue. It's just all of college basketball. If you're not a Power 5 school, no one's trying to come play you. It's that simple. So, and by the way, Anthony, don't be weird. They were up 20 at half. They should not be playing D2 schools. I get it. But if you're going to put them on the schedule and you have to play them, at least kick their ass. And they did. There was no doubt who was, you know what I mean? Like, I'm not taking pride in the Raiders win over D2 Lake Erie last night. But at the end of the day, you got to play games. You got to put a game on the floor for your fans. And they had, I think 3,700 fans. And I know you're going to scoff and say, oh, yeah, well, UD had 13,000. And good for them. Good for them. Wright State's not UD. UD's not Wright State. So you can't sit there and continuously pull well, we're holier than thou, we're better than you, and then mock them for when they don't fill up the Nutter Center. That's not who they are. They're not going to be, 11,000 strong at the Nutter Center. It is what it is. So you bully them, you make fun of them, you make fun of the conference they're in, and then when you struggle against a team that's in their conference, then all of a sudden, all the excuse parade comes out. We're the youngest team in college basketball, second youngest team in college basketball. It was an emotional night. They were excited to be back in front of fans. It's game one. That's always my favorite. Oh, man, we struggled because it's game one. Well, it was game one for UIC as well, and they have less talent, and they're the ones playing and I'll acknowledge this, that's a tough place to play for a team. That's tough. So UIC, they're the team that deserve the excuse train. They're the ones that should be saying, well, we struggled. It's the first game of the year. That's a more talented Dayton Flyers team. That fan base is so loud and crazy. It was tough. We got rattled at the end. They're the ones that should be making excuses, not the other way around. Now, I don't want to hear, oh, man, it's game one and we're young. We were nervous to be in front of the fans. You're nervous to be in front of your own fans? That doesn't make sense. Anyways, Christopher Mancha on Facebook says, get him, Justin, go UD, go Duke. I'm saying go UD, go Wright State, go Duke, go Ohio State, go everything. I'm not anti anything in particular. I'm just anti bad takes. That's all. Jake Mellon. Yes, the second youngest team in college basketball struggled in their first game playing musical chairs with rotations. You had a super duper secret scrimmage to figure out rotations. You've had a month of practices to figure out rotations. You had an exhibition game a week ago to figure out rotations. I don't want to hear that last night you were trying to figure out rotations. And to be fair, rotations will be needed to be ironed out more throughout non-conference. That's the purpose of all of it. But again, when you are Dayton, you've told me how great this program is. The players are so dang great. Well, if they're so dang great, then the gap between them and UIC should be so significant that even on a bad night for UD, they still smoke them. They didn't smoke them last night. Now, to be fair, do I expect them to smoke them? No, because I don't view them that way. I view them as a very good A-10 basketball team. I view them as a program that got a ton of talent, their highest rated recruiting class ever, because they capitalized on that aspect of the OB year. But I don't feel like the program has taken that step forward to be closer to being who they were in 2020. And look, I know that year was because of Obi Toppin, but let's be clear, it wasn't just because of Obi Toppin. Anthony Grant had to coach an entire roster to get to that point. You couldn't have dropped Obi Toppin on Wright State's roster or anyone else's roster and just expected that would have been the number 3 team in the country. Obi's good, but no offense, nobody's that good that you just make any roster in college basketball the number 3 team in the country. Heck no. That was the Obi Toppin-led Dayton Flyers. But my goodness, Ryan Mikesell, Trey Landers, you had Jalen Crutcher, you had Watson, you had all those guys. Like that was a true number 3 team in the country. That was a hell of a team that Anthony Grant put together. I'm not hating. I'm not one little bit. Tyler Schroeder says, so how about those Titans? I like that. All right. Last couple ones. So Charles Mitchell said OSU losing to Dayton is not the same as Dayton losing to Wright State. Nothing to gain for Dayton, everything to lose. Ohio State beating Dayton, what do they get from that? And actually, you're wrong. Dayton, if they beat Wright State over the last couple of seasons outside of that 2020 season, they've been ranked higher than UD in the Ken Palm. So therefore, yes, UD would get something out of that. UD would get a lot more out of beating a Wright State over some of the teams that they beat in their conference. So that's another one of those lazy little myths that you guys cling to, that you guys swear it's like it's this weird little fan club that you guys meet once a week and you guys practice and rehearsing these horrible takes that have been around for decades. It's embarrassing. It really is. So there's that. 518-1410. Let's go to Ryan. Ryan, welcome. Ryan, you there? I got to figure something out with Ryan, and let's see if we can get Ryan. Are you there? There we go.
Hello,
I hear you now. Now you're on live. I'm sorry about that. I hit the wrong button. We're off and rolling. What you got, man?
Just I came in late on the discussion about, Wright State and UD playing again. I'm a lifelong UD fan, and, you hear a lot about, reasons as to why UD doesn't want to play Wright State, but is there any known reason, whether it's official or unofficial, as to why Wright State would not want to play them, or has it just been decided, whether it's factual or hearsay, that UD is unwilling to play them, is my question. I mean, you hear those things over the years and you wonder if it's all just UD or if it's half and half.
And that's a very fair question too, because I hear a lot of people say, well, Wright State's demands are too crazy. But if you actually think that not you in particular, I'm sorry, Ryan, I'm not saying you, but like if people actually think that Wright State has any leverage to make any demands, they don't. And I don't think Wright State would make any demands. I think that Wright State has to stand up for themselves to a certain degree and say, hey, we're not going to do a 2-for-1, or we're not just going to do a one-off where we only come to you. Like, that doesn't make any sense. Like, they don't need, just because this city disrespects them doesn't mean that they need to disrespect themselves, especially when you see programs like Ohio State that are willing to go play at Cincinnati, that are willing to play at Xavier, that are, and you see Cincinnati playing at Northern Kentucky. We see this all the time, but somehow the Dayton Flyers are the only program in the history of the world that would be impacted by playing a team like Wright State. That doesn't make any sense. But to your credit, or to your question, Ryan, I'm close with enough people that I have to be careful what I reveal here, but I do know for a fact that a lot of offers have been extended from the Wright State side. And we had Coach Nagy on last year, and he said, hey, we can call all you want, but someone has to pick up. So that to me says a lot right there, that, hey, they've tried. UD won't even entertain the phone call. So there's that.
And I don't dispute that. And I also know, and I'll acknowledge it, even being a lifelong UD fan, they were playing Miami of Ohio once upon a time as well.
And that just ended a few years ago. I mean, it wasn't like that was 10 years ago. I mean, that they just played a few years ago. And I think that was, Anthony Grant's first year at UD, if I'm not mistaken. I think that's the last time they played Miami of Ohio. I could be wrong on that, but I believe that was the last time they played.
Well, it does start to makes you think that maybe it is one-sided, and you have, that's, hard to stare down the barrel of as a UD fan, that maybe it is UD, and but you never know that for sure. I wish they could still play Xavier, and that had a lot to do with the conference. They were both in the same conference, but why couldn't that rivalry continue to go on even after they went their separate ways? Because that was a great rivalry.
And I think that this is that, again, when you use this analogy, it sounds like you're taking shots at teams. But the big brother, little brother thing, like Cincinnati Xavier looked down on UD the way UD looks down on Wright State. And I do believe that when you're a program like UD who has a ton of pride, they take a ton of pride in who they are. And by the way, they definitely should. I have no problem with them being cocky and all that stuff. But again, if you're going to be cocky, then you're not immune to being called out for it. And that's all I'm trying to bring to attention here is that, hey, it's fine that you want to be adamant about not playing Wright State, but it doesn't mean that you're free from getting criticism from it. So, that's kind of where
I'm at. And the UD Xavier rivalry was really only one-sided when they played down at Xavier's place. I mean, there was that stat for a while that they hadn't beat them since the Reagan administration, and so they had Reagan faces down there at some of the last games when UD played down there. But UD got the best of them up at the arena, and I mean, there was times they might have met in the tournament. I can't really remember that, but it would just be nice if all the regional teams, regardless of their past accomplishments, could play each other. And I guess it's not meant to be, but it would be nice if everybody could play each other.
Oh, absolutely. And even if they don't play, and that's the thing too, because I've been doing this show for a few years now. I've been working in radio going back to 15. And I can't even give a simple compliment to Wright State without a UD fan immediately having to chime in about the attendance or chime in about the conference they play in or chime in about who's Wright State and blah, 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 like every single time. So rather than ignore it, I have a problem where I have to acknowledge it and I have to argue. And that's a flaw of mine, Ryan. Like I just have to learn to ignore it, but that ain't ever going to, there's a better chance of Wright State UD playing before I actually grow up and be an adult. Right. So that's kind of where I'm at with that.
And you also do get UD, UD gets it back honest. I mean, you pointed out Xavier and UC looking down on them, but if you've ever been around certain UK fans, they will refer to UD and look down on them as a JV team. So, I mean, if UD fans do it to Wright State, they're getting it from blue bloods anyway. So, I mean, it all balances out.
Oh, and that's just the nature of sports. It's happening. I mean, Ohio State football is doing that to Cincinnati right now. Cincinnati's undefeated. They have an actual big-time win against Notre Dame, and Ohio State's highlight win this year is against a 3-loss Penn State team, but yet you still have Buckeye fans chirping at Cincinnati. So that'll never go away. So you could probably say, well, Kinner, then stop talking about it because you just said it'll never go away. But that's the thing. Until it goes away, you're probably going to have to deal with me complaining. Look, I usually get one good Wright State UD rant in every year. After today, I'll move on and be done with it. But it usually boils up around this time when the season tips off. It never fails.
But it will keep going every year until they can maybe come to an agreement to play, which I think you might have said earlier. Somebody that called in said it'll never happen in our lifetime, and that could be true. But when does college basketball collectively start to realize that, you look at football and all the regional rivalries and, in-city rivalries and in-state rivalries. I mean, the MAC is made up of how many schools in Ohio, and they all play each other. Like, how can they keep going like this? It would be good for the sport if they got UD and UC together and, UD and Northern Kentucky even. I mean, it would be good for the sport if they could get those games going.
No doubt. We've always talked about that dream Ohio tournament or whatever, as far as that goes. So, and Chris Holtman, I've had multiple conversations with him, head coach at Ohio State, about the UD Ohio State thing. And he just said, hey, look, there's a lot of I's that have to be dotted and T's that are crossed. And let's just say that Ohio State has efforted some T's and I's to be dotted and crossed. And, there's a team that, is doing the Wright State thing, I guess, in the eyes of most, where it's like, hey, we're not just going to do a one-off. You need to come here too. So again, you're right. It's coming down on them. They're getting it, honestly. They're getting it from the teams above them, and they're giving it to the teams below them. But that's why the only reason it gets brought up is when they play equivalent teams. When you play the UICs, who, by the way, Wright State's better than, but you'll play Cleveland State, you'll play UIC, you'll play Detroit, you'll play Northern Kentucky last year. You'll play all these teams after trying to convince us that Wright State does nothing for them, but yet you'll play the same level of competition. It doesn't make any sense. That's all.
No, it doesn't. I agree.
Ryan, who's your football team?
Ohio State.
Ohio State. You think? I mean, they're number 4 right now. You like where they're at?
Yeah, I do. I mean, I'm happy, but you can't take anything for granted at this point. I mean, they've got some tough games coming up, and if they don't figure some things out, they're gonna drop a game. Whether it's at Michigan or even they just have they still have some tough games coming up, and everybody's just trying to spoil everybody in the Big Ten at this point. So
no kidding. But hey, Ryan, I appreciate your call, man. Thank you.
All right, thanks. Take care.
518-1410. Let's go to Adam. Adam, how are you?
Hey, man, how are you?
Good.
So, heard you commenting earlier and been listening to your talk about Wright State basketball. I wanted to see how you felt about this, where you mentioned college football and not being able to enjoy those last second wins, and college basketball getting to this point where, like, is college basketball and college football and just the NCAA and how they've decided to handle their quote unquote business in general, where they're just trying to get to the Final Four. They're just trying to get to the NCAA tournament. So you have athletic directors, schools that are trying to schedule games to, I guess, look at the best at the contest of the year. Look the best at the end of the day. Do you think that is ruined? Or no, I shouldn't say ruined. That's not the right. But is that where college athletics is getting to now, and fans just have to get used to that? So you have Wright State and Dayton, or Dayton is. It's probably not going to benefit Dayton if they're trying to get to the NCAA tournament, because Wright State, Cleveland State, these teams in the Horizon League, they have their reputation of being successful some years when they get to the NCAA tournament against bigger schools. I guess, how do you feel about that?
No, and that, yeah, we were talking about earlier, Adam, when I was talking about the college football playoff. I thought it was the best thing that's ever happened to college football, but then I realized we just had a weekend where we had maybe not the sexiest matchups, but we had some of the most entertaining finishes. I mean, Alabama, LSU, that was a great finish. Ohio State, Nebraska, it was a fun finish. So, I mean, Cincinnati and you look at Tulsa, that was one hell of a finish. But yet, after every one of those games, you had 3 fan bases that felt like they lost, and those fan bases that felt like they lost, their team won. Bearcat fans couldn't enjoy their win because it just wasn't by enough. Buckeye fans didn't feel good about the Nebraska win because, hey, they didn't beat Nebraska down. Alabama fans really couldn't chirp about their win because they just lost, they just barely beat a very bad LSU team. So the college football playoff, to me, has almost ruined the fan experience of football, because there's only 4 teams and 4 fan bases that are going to feel good about themselves, and there's over 300 plus teams that will not feel good about themselves, and that's a problem. Basketball is a little different, though, just because 68 teams get in, and there's also other tournaments. You have your NITs and you have those others that we look down upon, but I mean, there's more opportunities to play into March, and not just in the NCAA tournament. So I think there's a slight difference there.
Right, but just, I guess, big time, going to it's hard to, like you said, compare the playoff with only 4, and then NCAA, they have 68. But I guess how I kind of look at it now, and I'm assuming I'm the minority in this too, is just like, so you have Dayton is in a conference, they get an automatic bid to go to the NCAA tournament, but they also are competing, like you want to compare Cincinnati to that, as that as well, where you have Dayton going up against a school, Cincinnati going up against, we'll use Ohio State, for example, as a number 4 spot in the football playoff, where depending on who you schedule and who you play, like, you're playing this cat and mouse game, it seems like, in both of these sports now. Again, like you said, basketball, they got more opportunity to get into the NCAA tournament and the NIT and all this other stuff, but it just kind of seems if you're not on the main show, you're not on CBS or TNT, these shows, would day 1, day 2 getting that exposure, like, what does that really mean for your program as a whole? Maybe that's, like I said, I'm in the minority, but it seems where college athletics is going, and they're just competing against each other off the field instead of just on the field. And, the game is being taken out of it. So, and especially
it's going to get worse now with name, image, and likeness. I mean, it's becoming more. I mean, we've always known it's a business. It's just becoming more business centered now. So that's kind of where it's.
So you and me agree on that. No, appreciate the call, man. I really enjoy your show. So thanks again.
Thank you. I appreciate that. Look at that. A Dayton Flyer fan who said he enjoyed the show. They do exist. They do exist. I do got to make sure I preface this one more time before moving on to another topic to make more people mad. I'm sure. I don't hate the program. I'm not anti-UD. When they succeed, I don't lose sleep at night. I don't get upset. Nothing like that. My anger stems from fans making dumb comments about Wright State or about the matchup itself, or this superiority complex that you have of like, oh, Wright State, UD doesn't owe them anything. Well, if you could find me anytime I've ever said that they owe them something, I'll gladly have that conversation. If you could find any article out there that Wright State has come out and said UD owes us something, I'll gladly have that conversation with you. So there's that. Charles Mitchell on Facebook says, if you don't like the fans in Dayton, if you don't like how the fans in Dayton get fired up for their sports teams, go do radio in Portland or something. You constantly trash my team, so I trash your teams. Nobody in town cares about Wright State. See, that's what I'm talking about, Charles. You don't get to say moronic, stupid crap like that and expect me not to respond. Nobody cares about Wright State. Really? Nobody cares? Nobody cares about Wright State. Okay. That's a pretty stupid comment to make, even for you, Charles. And you say a lot of stupid things, and I love giving you the platform to say stupid things. But when you say stupid things, I will call you out for it. And that might be, and you're a Bengals fan, that might be one of the dumbest things I've ever heard you say. And that's saying something. I'm just saying. And when you say I trash your teams, the banter between me and Bengals fans, yes, I like to poke fun at Joe Burrow and the Bengals. But at the same time, name something I've said that's not technically true. Are you mad at me because the time I said their O-line was bad? Are you mad at the time I said, hey, Joe Burrow throws too many interceptions, and then the next thing you know, he's leading the league in interceptions? Are you mad at that? Are you mad at the fact that I said that the Browns are better, and then, oh, yeah, the Browns kicked your team's ass? Are you mad at that? Like, when you say I'm trashing your team, I'm not trashing your team. I'm just telling you like it is. I told you that the Browns are better. They beat your team. I told you that Joe Burrow is not as good as you think. He leads the league in interceptions. I told you that what they did in the offseason wasn't enough to button up the offensive line. Joe Burrow's is the fourth most sacked quarterback in the National Football League. You're not mad that I'm trashing your team. You're mad that what I'm saying is not good about your team. And instead of getting mad at what's not good about your team, you get mad at the messenger. I'm not making it up. Your team's not undefeated, and I'm sitting here telling you they're bad. I'm telling you why they're not as good as you think they are. And when I tell you why I think it's a lame excuse for why a certain program in town won't play the other one, I'm not saying anything that's not true. If you could find me something that I've said about the Flyers that isn't true, I'd be glad to admit that I'm wrong. But please tell me where I'm wrong. Where am I? What am I wrong about, Charles? I'm glad. I really want to know. Because I think what you're mad at is when I tell you that the Browns are better and then they beat your team down like they did last Sunday, that makes you mad. So then you counter it with, oh, I'm just trashing your teams. I'm not trashing your teams. The Browns trashed your team this past Sunday. I'm not trashing your team. I'm just giving you an opinion on, well, the destruction that took place. I don't play. Never played. Well, I don't know. I mean, I don't know anything about football to the point to where I could sit there and act like I can coach a team or play by any means. But if someone as simple as me can sit there and point out the fact that the Browns are better, I mean, come on now. I'm just saying. They just talk trash to you because you dog our teams. I don't dog your teams. I'm just not a cheerleader. I'm not the media in town. There's so much media in town that they care more about being a cheerleader than they actually do about covering a particular team. That's the problem I have. Fans don't like to, I mean, it's just like a parent. If you have a baby out there, you ever show your baby to people and you think your baby's the cutest baby in the world. I mean, you just smile ear to ear. And then people say, oh man, yeah, your baby's really cute. Well, most people don't have the guts to tell you that your baby's ugly, because there's a lot of ugly babies out there. There's only like one or two babies that I know right now that I think that they are the cutest thing in the world. Shout out to Ren. Outside of that, a lot of ugly babies out there. A lot of ugly babies. I just have the guts to tell you that your baby's ugly. That's the difference. I'm not going to tell you that, oh, look at your little team. They're so cute. Look at the way they're propped up in those stands. No, I'm just saying, hey, your team's not that good. And you get mad. No one wants to be told that their baby's ugly. No one wants to be told that their team's not good. So you tell me if I don't like it to go do another, to go to another market. Well, if you don't like it, listen to somebody else. But I've been here for 3 years. I've signed a contract extension. I ain't going anywhere anytime soon. I promise you that much. It's the Justin Kinner Show. Let's talk a little Browns, shall we? And I'm not going to bash the Bengals. There's nothing to bash them about. They had a bad game against the Browns. Bye week could not have come at a better time. They'll get it together. I expect an exciting finish down the stretch, and I'm glad that all the teams are within a game and a half of one another. I'm done with the arguing. But you're dead wrong, Charles. You're wrong. I love when you call in. I love the back and forth, but you're wrong on that. I'm not wrong. If you could point out what I've said that's wrong about what did I say that's about the Bengals that I've been wrong about? I'll wait. I could just let this music play for the next, let's see, it's 4:51. I have an hour and 10 minutes left. I can let this music play for an hour and 10 minutes as I wait for you to point out what I've said that's wrong. And I guarantee you, you won't be able to point anything out that I've said that's wrong. You can't. Jake said, I've just never heard you talk UD much. I could care. What are you going to talk UD in July? It's college football season right now. The game's just tipped off. I talked Dayton basketball. I gave a report. I gave a rundown. UD played last night. They won. I gave a report about Wright State. They won. I gave a report about Ohio State, how they won. I actually criticized Ohio State. I was critical of Ohio State for needing 40 full minutes to beat Akron. I criticized them. I don't see no Buckeye fans crying in the comment section saying, oh, you're picking on my team. No, because they actually understand basketball. You guys want to play bad and be told that it's okay. You're like Bearcat fans. The Bearcat fans, they want to play like crap for 3 straight weeks and be told that, oh, it's okay. We'll let you in. We'll let you play by a different set of rules. They want to be treated like the big boys, but then when they get judged like the big boys, then they get their feelings hurt. You cannot have it both ways. You just can't. I agree it's silly that they don't play, but to knock them for their schedule right now and how they handled UIC last night, I disagree with. I'm not knocking their schedule. Jake, not too long ago when the schedule came out, there were some Flyer fans who were critical of the schedule, and I said, no, they don't need to put anyone good on the schedule because they don't have to. Like, no offense to Wright State, who I work very closely with, and I love Wright State, but, you know, they do face some pressure at times of trying to get good teams in the non-conference to come in because they know that, hey, unfortunately, they're working on the brand of Wright State, but that brand doesn't resonate in this city the way Dayton does. Dayton, do you guys even pay attention to who they play? Are you guys big UMass Lowell fans? Are you guys going to go fill up UD Arena on Saturday night to watch UMass Lowell? No, you are going to watch them. Wright State, since Coach Nagy has been here, I think has done this is in my time covering, this is the first time I felt like there's a connection between the team and the fan base. Make fun of the fan base all you want, but there is a connection there. That wasn't there when I first started covering the team. And the attendance has gone up. They lead their conference in attendance. Last night they played a D2 team, and they had close to 4,000 fans in attendance. And you could mock that number, but that's a very good number for a mid-major team. What UD does is not normal, and that's a compliment. Like that doesn't happen. There's teams in the A10 that don't do what UD does. UD is not they're the Tom Brady. I'm not saying that they're great. What I'm saying is, like, Tom Brady, you can't explain. You can't explain how a guy that is closer to death than he is being born is the best quarterback of the National Football. You can't explain it. He's just good. You can't explain it. There's no reason why he should still be good. He's just good. Dayton is not a Power 5 program. They should not be selling out 13,000 fans to every game, but they do. It's not normal. That's not what you see across college basketball. So to hold Wright State to that is stupid. Just be proud of what you have and be proud without having to put everyone else down around you. I have no clue. That's why I come to bat for Wright State. I make sure that I go at you guys because you guys like to spit it back. I don't hate Anthony Grant. I don't hate the Flyers program. I'm pulling for them to succeed because you want to know why? Because my job's a whole hell of a lot more fun when they're good. And when they're bad, my job's not as fun. When the Reds are bad, my job's not as fun. When Wright State and UD are bad, my job's not as fun. When the Browns and Bengals are both bad, my job's not as fun. When Ohio State is not in the playoff conversation, my job's not as fun. So you guys sound like a bunch of morons when you try to convince yourself and me that I'm pulling for them to fail. I don't want them to fail. I need them to win. You need them to win. We all need them to win. This city needs them to win. When they're making NCAA tournament runs and they're on every newscast and sports show out there, that's great for me. That's great for you. That's great for the city. I'm not pulling for them to fail. I am pulling for certain fans to get their heads out of their behinds and stop thinking like a bunch of weirdos. That's all. It's not that hard to figure out. It's not that hard so to say I don't talk UD much, the season just tipped off last night. And guess what? The very next day, we're talking UD. Matt on Facebook says, UD and Wright State need to happen. Keep the pressure on. I do think there is merit to struggling last night with being a very young team. Go Flyers, go Raiders. Matt, thank you. That's what we'll end on. Matt and I butt heads a lot, but go Flyers, go Raiders. Cool. That's all we need. But I will never understand why I can't bring up a Raiders score. The second I brought up Wright State's score last night, 3 or 4 comments popped up making fun of them and who they played and who cares. Go UD, blah, blah, blah. So if anyone is mad at me for going on this hour-long rant, blame your fellow Flyer fans, because not all Flyer fans are bad. Just a select few of you. But you ruin it for everybody else. Just like in a relay race, you're only as fast as your slowest runner, and you're slow, and you're pulling a lot of Flyer fans back because there's a lot of great Flyer fans out there. Flyers program's fantastic. Love the program, love the coaches, love everyone with that program. I have nothing against them, but y'all bring up this side of me that is forcing me to say things that make other people mad. I'm done. Hour 3 next.
It's the Justin Kinner Show with Kev Nash, presented by Orion Sports Medicine.
ESPN 1410 Wing AM weather.
This afternoon will be partly cloudy, a high near 64. Tonight will be mostly cloudy, a low around 50. And tomorrow will be mostly cloudy with a chance of showers and thunderstorms, a high near 65. I'm Pete Spivak for 1410 ESPN Radio.
Weather is brought to you by Cullet Seal Coating, protecting the asphalt surfaces at your home, office, or commercial property. Introducing infrared patching, a new technology for your property. This service and more at culletsealcoating.com.
When others treat your fries as an afterthought, all you're left with are cold, soggy fries. That's why Wendy's new fries are ones you won't forget, guaranteed to be hot and crispy, or we'll replace them. We're talking natural cut, skin-on fries, perfectly seasoned with a hint of sea salt. In fact, they're even preferred almost 2-to-1 over McDonald's. These are fries so hot and crispy, they beg a new question.
What would you like with your fries?
Try them today, only at Wendy's. At participating U.S. Wendy's, taste preference based on a national taste test by an independent research company.
Do you know how much you're really paying for life insurance through work? I can almost guarantee you're overpaying for limited coverage. I'm Joel Clark, a Select Quote agent for over 20 years. My clients are shocked to learn how expensive life insurance at work really is because of a rate that's driven up by unhealthy people. Why pay more when you don't have to? For over 35 years, SelectQuote has helped people save 50% or more by shopping highly rated insurance carriers. I even found a 40-year-old man with high blood pressure, a 10-year, $500,000 policy for only $19 a month. Don't wait. Workplace open enrollment is here. Let SelectQuote save you money and get you the coverage you need to protect your family.
For your free quote in just minutes, call 1-800-449-8811. That's 1-800-449-8811. 1-800-449-8811. Or go to SelectQuote.com. Full details on example policy and carrier ratings at SelectQuote.com/commercials. Price could vary by health, issuing company, and other factors. Not available in all states.
Whether you're vaccinated or not, it's important to know the symptoms of COVID and its variants. Fever is the leading sign of COVID and the flu, so make sure you use an accurate thermometer. Only the Exergen Temporal Scanner Thermometer has been proven accurate with more than 100 clinical studies. Non-contact thermometers have no clinical evidence behind them and are not reliable. Be vigilant and seek medical advice at the first sign of fever. Learn more at Exergen.com.
Hi, this is Eddie Sorrell, Service Manager at Germain Honda of Beaver Creek, recipient of Honda's President's Award. When your vehicle needs service, we make it convenient. Open 6 days a week, including all day Saturday. We also welcome same-day appointments and walk-ins as well. Our technicians are factory trained, and we offer a new state-of-the-art facility, clean waiting rooms, loaner cars, and free alignment checks as well. Ask for the $99.95 alignment special. Germain Honda of Beaver Creek, Route 35, just east of 675. Between Xenia and Beaver Creek.
My part-time service in the Army National Guard makes it possible for me to be more for the community I call home. I'm a better neighbor because my service has taught me how important it is to be a team player. My training helps me in my classes when I give attention to detail to the task at hand. My service also allows me to be there for my community in ways others can't. I help my hometown recover after nature strikes. My service in the Army National Guard allows me to keep my country and those I care about safe from threats. I also work with a network of professionals that help me succeed. Also, the Army National Guard's education benefits make getting a higher education a reality. Being an Army National Guard soldier makes living and serving in my community more rewarding every day. Learn more about how you too can live and serve part-time close to home by visiting NationalGuard.com.
Sponsored by the Ohio Army National Guard. Aired by the Ohio Association of Broadcasters and this station.
WING 1410 Dayton. Dayton's ESPN Radio.
Talk about something else, shall we? Dustin Kidder back with you here on Dayton's ESPN radio station 1410 Wing AM. As reported earlier today that the Seattle Mariners are among the teams who are heavily checking in with the Cincinnati Reds regarding right-hander Louis Castillo. Seattle has one of the industry's top farm systems, according to John Morosi, and says that Jerry Dipoto isn't shy about making major trades. Now, I want to be angry about this, but I think that there's a couple things that we have to realize about the Cincinnati Reds as we currently sit here right now. We have to ask ourselves, who are the Cincinnati Reds? The Cincinnati Reds, who are they? Are they closer to rebuilding or are they closer to competing? And I know this is going to be the laziest answer ever, but I mean, I think that if there was ever a time to say that a team is directly slap dab in the middle, that's the Reds. The Reds, they're close. To be fair, I guess I could change that up a bit because to a certain extent, they are a team that right now they're closer to a rebuild, especially since Nick Castellanos did turn down the qualifying offer that they gave him. They moved on from Tucker Barnhart. And there's talks of moving all these guys. So there's no Tucker Barnhart now. There's no, Castellanos as far as that's concerned. The Reds right now they're going backwards. And you look back to how they lost Trevor Bauer a year ago. They didn't, effort to keep that bullpen in position from 2 years ago as well. So this has been maybe a slow rebuild that has started. Maybe this was done on purpose. Let's let a couple guys walk last year. Let's let a couple more walk this year rather than rip the Band-Aid off and make the Reds fans feel the pain. We'll kind of hang around in the middle. And I feel like the roster that was put together this year or that was in place this year was more of those tweener teams that okay, well, let's just see where we're at come the trade deadline. Well, then, typical Reds fashion, they found themselves, second place. They were within a couple games of the division. And, at that point, you really couldn't justify to your fan base blowing the roster up. I think that deep down, I do believe it was a very similar situation to the plot of Major League. I think that the Castellinis were kind of hoping that the Reds were going to self-implode. That the Reds, in my opinion, I think that the Castellinis had guys on the roster like Moustakas, like Castellanos. You have Sonny Gray still from those, sea of moves that they've made over the years to get the roster in position that it was, during the COVID year. But I feel like the Castellinis left that roster in place so that they could say, they knew it was strong enough to make it give the appearance that, hey, we tried. We got you Castellanos. We got you Moustakas. We got you Shogo Akiyama. We got you Sonny Gray over the years. We developed you Luis Castillo. Tyler Malley's been that was a product of the Cincinnati Reds, right? That's who they are. Eugenio Suarez, despite the fact that he is absolutely horrible this past year, he was on the verge of being the next big power hitter in baseball. And for the Cincinnati Reds, he didn't pan out, but he was a Reds guy as well. I know with trades and stuff, but the point is that he was a part of the come up, and man, was he quickly a part of the come down. But as I currently sit here right now, I feel like the front office, I think that the front office got screwed over by the Reds being competitive in the first half of the season. Then they had no choice but to go get some low-hanging fruit moves at the deadline to show that, hey, we are in position because of us. We have the talent because of us. You are within a couple games of the division at the halfway point because of us. And we're going to go save the day and get you some bullpen pieces at the trade deadline because of us, so that they could take all the credit. But then when the team fumbled down the stretch, they lost so many. I mean, they had the easiest schedule in baseball, and they were losing series to the Pirates, losing series to the Tigers and to the Marlins. And it's what is going on? The Cardinals, who ended up being a playoff team, but at the time losing to the Cardinals was not acceptable. Now you could say, well, the Cardinals did win 17 straight and they were a fun story down the stretch. But the thing is, the Reds are supposed to be the fun story down the stretch. I'm not going to give you a pass for losing to a streaking Cardinals team because they're a constant reminder of what you are not. And that's the problem. The Reds are closer to a rebuild right now. And I think that the second we accept that, the second we can all get on board and at least start thinking in regards to the moment. Right now, we are wasting too much time being angry at the system. We're angry at the Reds. We're angry at the Castellinis. When, unfortunately, I had taken my rebuild hat off. I thought that we were in position to start focusing more now on the future of the team. And unfortunately, the future of the team is what we're going to focus on, but it's the far-off future. I thought that we were close to having a roster that was going to be filled with veterans, that was going to be complemented by up-and-coming talent like Jose Barrero, who, of course, he's shown glimpses of solidness. If that's a word, solidness, is that a word? Because I can't say glimpses of greatness because I don't think he's looked great, but he was supposed to be the next big prospect coming up. That was supposed to be the future all-star shortstop for the Reds, which is what kept them from going all out and trying to get a Francisco Lindor or trying to go all out to get a big name at shortstop. They said, hey, we just got to drag our feet. We got to do this shortstop by committee this year to get, give Barrero a little bit more time. He's had 2 years. He had the back end of the COVID year and all of this past year to figure it out. I'm not all warm and fuzzy inside for the Reds at shortstop. But I thought it was going to be a combination of veterans on this roster mixed with the up-and-coming young talent, whether it be Barrero, and then, of course, you have Nick Lodolo, you have Hunter Green. I thought that Hunter Green and Nick Lodolo were going to be called up to complement the likes of a Louis Castillo, a Tyler Mahle, and a Sonny Gray. And if Nick Lodolo and Hunter Green pan out to be who they're supposed to be, all of a sudden the Reds' rotation sounds like it's pretty damn good. But now all of a sudden, you're letting Nick Castellanos walk. You moved on from Tucker Barnhart. Of course, moving on from Tucker Barnhart, there is reasonings for it that I can't accept. I don't like it, but I can't accept it. It's all about, hey, you've developed Tyler Stevenson. The only way to find out if he is the guy is by giving him the guy type of opportunities, and he's going to get that. But the problem is this is starting to feel an awful lot like a rebuild. Heading into year 3 of Barrero, what's he going to be? Heading into the first full year of Tyler Stevenson being the A1 catcher, what's he going to be? Moving on from Nick Castellanos, Joey Votto was able to revert back to his MVP style of play over this chunk of this past season. Was that just a one-off? Does he have more left in the tank? Can we expect that, Joey Votto? I don't think we can, but I would love to. But Castellanos is gone. And it sounds like Louis Castillo could be close to being gone too, because here's the problem. Barrero is the shortstop moving forward. Tyler Stevenson is the catcher moving forward. Hunter Green and Nick Lodolo will most likely be, in the rotation or within the bullpen come opening day for the Cincinnati Reds, which means you had a team that was full of veterans and Nick Castellanos and Moustakas and these guys. You had a team full of veterans with the team that had a lot of talent in the farm system, headlined by Nick Lodolo, headlined by Hunter Green and Tyler Stevenson and Barrero and guys like that, right? Well, now they're no longer farm system pieces. And now you're about to be very, very bad. You're going to be average to very below average on your main roster, and you're going to be average to way below average in your farm system. And that is right back where we started with this team back in 2014. Remember that when you had Brandon Phillips, you had Todd Frazier, and you had Jay Bruce, and you had that whole swarm of talented guys. It was a farewell bid for them. The Reds had nobody in the farm system, nobody. So the job of the Castellinis and Dick Williams and whoever was running things, whatever, their job was to take Brandon Phillips and take Todd Frazier and take Jay Bruce and take those guys and Johnny Cueto and take those, and Mike Leake. Their job was to take those guys and turn them into not salary dumps, because people say, oh, it's just salary dump time. This isn't salary dump time. This is about replenishing a farm system. The signs are there, folks. Nick Lodolo, Hunter Green, Barrero, Tyler Stevenson, those guys they are main roster guys moving forward. And those were the faces of that farm system coming up. I know that Stevenson was basically on the roster all of last year, as was Barrero, but there was always that 1 foot in, 1 foot out. That's no longer the case. They're now being thrown out into the deep end, and if it's either sink or swim. So now the big question is what happens from here? It's no coincidence, and I just read John Morosi's tweet about the Mariners and their reputation in baseball as being a team that They have one of the best minor league systems in baseball as far as the talent they have there, and they are never shy of moving those pieces to go get talent that is ready to participate or ready to contribute now. The Mariners would love to go get a Louis Castillo and let him do his thing for them right now. They would love to move on from a lot of their top prospects. The Reds are in a pickle here. You know, do you head into next year with Louis Castillo, Sonny Gray, Nick Lodolo, Tyler Mahle, and Hunter Green as your rotation? And then you have a lineup that no longer features your Castellanos, Jesse Winker, super, can't rely on him, always hurt. You have Nick Senzel, super when he's in the lineup, always hurt. Shogo Akiyama is supposed to be an exciting piece brought over from Japan. He has not lived up to that. He was supposed to be a leadoff hitter. He's leading off, batting eighth sometimes. It don't make any damn sense. He hasn't panned out. Moustakas is looking like he's trying to gain enough weight to try out to be an offensive lineman for the Bengals, and they'll probably give him that contract because they give contracts to just about damn near anybody. And there it is again. You're right, Charles. Maybe I do have a problem, but that's not the problem. I don't care. I'll accept that. I'll deal with that later. Point is, the Reds aren't good. What made them good and exciting and interesting was Castellanos, Jesse Winker, that tandem out there, the two all-stars in the outfield for the National League for the Cincinnati Reds. That's no longer the case. If you look at the last 2 years, the Reds have lost Cy Young winning pitcher Trevor Bauer. They lost MVP candidate in Castellanos. And now they're about to lose what I thought was going to be the ace in the face of that rotation in Louis Castillo. I want to hate it, but I do know that keeping Louis Castillo and keeping this roster in place, we saw what happened when the Reds didn't push the reset button early enough back in 2013. 2013 is when they should have hit the reset button. 2014 is when they should have really hit the reset button. 2015 is when they hit the reset button, and it was too late by then. It was too late by then. Jay Bruce was a year older. You didn't get anything back for him of substance. Brandon Phillips didn't get anything. Todd Frazier, not really anything. Luis Castillo, that was an underwhelming return that you got. Or not Luis Castillo, I'm sorry. Johnny Cueto was the very underwhelming return because you waited too long, because no team was going to give up a ton of prospects for a guy that had 1 year left on his deal. That's why Luis Castillo is so important to the Reds right now. I think that Luis Castillo has more value to the Reds on the trade market. Unfortunately, folks, I'm not giving the Reds a pass here. He is more valuable to the Reds on the trade market than he is on the roster, not because I'm defending the front office. He's more valuable to them in the trade market because of the front office's inability to give a crap about winning. Because what's easy to do as a team owner is, hey, if we just keep selling our fans on the idea of hope, it's an intangible object that you can't physically reach out and touch or grab. So if we just keep pitching the idea of hope, the future is bright, if we keep doing that, you aren't expected to win. You have time. You don't have any timetable of winning right away. So they you know what I mean? They get away with it that way. The Reds are a disaster. I thought I was a Castellini guy a few years ago whenever he sat up at Reds Fest and looked at us and he apologized to me and Mark Schlemmer and the Reds fans. He apologized for the losing, to follow it up with more losing. Winning, but losing. They finished above 500 this year. They technically made the playoffs in 20, although I don't count it. They made the playoffs. But that's really what you went all out for? You spent $160 million in free agency to win one game above 500 in 2020 and to finish above 521 and still miss the playoffs. That's what you went all out for. That's what you brought Trevor Bauer over for and Sonny Gray over. That's what you got Castellanos and Mike Moustakas for. That's what you did all of that for. Well, finish one game above 500 and be embarrassed in the playoffs in 20 against Shaw's Braves. And then in 2021, finish above 500. Brag about how great of a job David Bell did to not lead them to the playoffs, by the way. While other teams like the Padres, who had a ton of expectations, fired their manager for the second half collapse. The Cardinals win 17 straight games against all odds, make the playoffs. They fire their manager because, hey, they're not living up to the franchise's expectations. And then here's the Reds, David Bell. Brian Price lost a crap ton of games, folks, as he should have. Imagine how many games Brian Price would have won had he had Trevor Bauer, Sonny Gray, Luis Castillo, Tyler Mahle. Had he had a Mike Moustakas and a Castellanos and MVP level Joey Votto, and Jesse Winker. Imagine what he would, oh man, Brian Price is horrible. Yeah, you gave him a horrible roster. Maybe he is a horrible manager. I have no idea. We'll never know. But that's why it's dangerous to take these jobs over rebuilding teams, because guess who always gets blamed for the losing, even though the whole concept of rebuilding is to lose enough games to put yourself in position to get as high a draft pick as possible to replenish your farm system. That's the whole purpose of rebuilding, is losing. And then when you lose, you sit there and point the finger at the manager like, well, what the hell, man? Technically, Brian Price did more of his job. Brian Price actually lived up to his responsibilities more than David Bell has. Brian Price lived up to his responsibility of putting this team in position to lose, to get high draft picks, to get top prospects, to replenish that farm system, to complement what they were supposed to get at the deadline when they hit the rebuild too late. But I truly believe that the Reds need to just hit the reset button now, because they're not holding on to anything. It's not like the Houston Astros, who right now are trying to figure out what to do with Carlos Correa and company, because, they're sitting there saying, we got to move on from him. You could say, well, they're about to hit the reset button. They might lose Correa, but keep in mind that the Astros have a good enough roster to still compete and be the Cardinals technically of that division, where they're going to have enough talent to still win a lot of games and be interesting. Dusty Baker, you think he came back for another year with Houston next season to lose? No. Because he expects them to still be good. It's not the same thing. They might lose a player or two, but they're not rebuilding. That's just called, you have too many stars. You've already put too much money into the team. You can't afford all of them. That's really, they're at a completely different spot. The Reds, they're just giving up. If the Reds bring back everybody next year, they're just an average ball club. Why go through that again? I would rather them hit the reset button now, and I can't believe I'm saying that. But the alternative to not rebuilding right now is winning 75 games with Jesse Winker and a fat Mike Moustakas, an inconsistent Louis Castillo at times, who you pay him to be you pay Louis Castillo, or you want to pay Louis Castillo to be the ace of your staff for 162 games, but yet the guy doesn't know how to pitch in April and May. And then by the time he does start figuring it out in the back half of the season, the Reds are already out of the conversation. So why not trade him and get a crap ton of prospects from the Mariners for him? If I'm the Reds, unfortunately, I want them to start the rebuild now. If you have to trade Jesse Winker even, it sucks, but my God, you'll get some talent for him. If you want to trade Luis Castillo, my God, you're going to get some talent for him. If you want to package it with Tyler Mahle and load up even more. But I would rather, because here's the deal. We went through all of that losing last time just so that the Reds could develop pretty much nobody and have to rely on the Castellanos, Moustakas, Trevor Bauer, Sonny Gray moves for them to even come close to winning. They did such a bad job with that rebuild back in 14 and 15 that none of those guys were good enough to really carry this team, and that's why they had to make the moves to go get a Sonny Gray, a Trevor Bauer. They tried with Alex Wood for that little bit of time, and to get Mike Moustakas and Castellanos. Like, the reason that the Reds had to go make all those moves is because they didn't develop anyone worth the damn outside of Jesse Winker. It's that simple. So I don't want that to happen again. I want the Reds to hit the reset button now, get a crap ton of good prospects to replenish the farm system, all while at least having a better shot of nailing this rebuild, because they failed. People act like, someone earlier today commented on my Facebook page and said, man, did the Reds rebuild ever end? And I'm like, yes, it ended 2 years ago when they spent $160 million in free agency. Just because people think that the end game of a rebuild is a playoff run or a World Series. That's not always the case. Sometimes you just have a bad rebuild. And the Reds, we watched the Cubs go through hell and back during their rebuild, and it capped off with the World Series. And we thought that it was our turn. We thought, man, we just watched the Cubs do it. Now it's our turn. Nah, it was our turn, but we failed. The Reds failed. And it stinks, because I'm a big Reds fan. I love Great American Ballpark. I love the feeling of this city and Cincinnati when that ball club is clicking on all cylinders. There's no better feeling. When the Reds were sitting tight in that wild card spot, that was such a fun little mini run. And then all of a sudden, come September, the wheels fell off. It's unfortunate, but I see Luis Castillo has no value for the Reds in 2022. he does have value for the Reds technically if they move on from him now and replenish the farm system. Castellanos has moved on. I'm actually glad the Reds didn't try to pay him, because even if the Reds would have paid him, that means you would have paid Castellanos to come back with Louis Castillo, with Sonny Gray, with, of course, Tyler Mahle and company, just so they can win 75 to 80 games if they're lucky. And now you have a max paid player on a below average team. And now we're watching the Joey Votto decade all over again. That's what happened. The Reds paid Joey Votto back in 2012, knowing that they were about to blow this roster up within the next couple of years. Now, just because they didn't blow it up in the next couple of years doesn't mean that they didn't intend to. They just kept dragging their feet. They had the All-Star game in town. They didn't want to be a rebuilding last place, embarrassing joke of a team with the All-Star game in town. They wanted to be interesting. They wanted to have guys they wanted to, have more than one guy on the team. They wouldn't have been able to experience the Todd Frazier home run derby experience had they started the rebuild on time. But they were more for the experience of that than they were for the joy of winning. And that's the unfortunate part. All right, I'm going to step away for a few moments. 518-1410, that's the number to call in. A couple of you on hold. Shaw, I know you're on hold. I promise we'll get to you coming up here in just a second. But thoughts, Reds fans? By the way, Wade Miley. That was a huge blow, by the way. Wade Miley, the Reds just letting him go. When I read that day that the Cubs claimed him off waivers, I didn't even know he was available on waivers. The Reds did that that was very sneaky what they did there. Wade Miley, it's tough to find quality starters to fill out a rotation. He was a solid dude. That was in a lefty on top of that. You just let him go? Well, I'm only fine with it if you're about to hit the reset button. So there you go. Tom Wynn on Facebook says, if Barrero is the future, put him in the lineup and leave him in there. Farmer wasn't a starter, but got a chance to show he could play. And Tom Wynn, you know what? And you're right, though, about Farmer, because I actually think what hurt the Reds, even though it helped the Reds that Farmer provided some stability at shortstop, that was the problem, though. Because by him showing that he could play at short, that got in the way of Barrero, and it's now Barrero, again, just still not ready. Even if you have to play through the struggles, you got to let him play. I'm with you on that, Tom. I think that despite the fact that Farmer saved the Reds by being able to, kind of fill the gap at shortstop a bit, it actually hurt them because Kyle Farmer's not the shortstop of the future. Kyle Farmer may not be a Red of the future. And that's kind of where it's at right now. Greg Berkey on Facebook says it's a rebuild. You're forgetting letting Miley go on waivers. Oh, Greg, I read your comment before I brought that up, so I don't want to steal that from you. Yes, you're why I said that. He was their best pitcher and bargain at what he would have made. Exactly. But that's why I'm looking at this. I'm like, the only way that you let him go is because you're about to rebuild. But I just think it's ridiculous, man, because you could have had Luis Castillo, Wade Miley, Sonny Gray calling up Hunter Green and Nick Lodolo. And you had Tyler Mahle. You had depth. This was your chance to have depth. And they let Castellanos go. Oh, but Justin, they gave him the qualifying offer. You have to give him the qualifying offer to get the compensatory picks. Because if you don't, you lost him for nothing. And even what you got for him is still about the end result of what the Reds got for Johnny Cueto and some of the other stars back in 2015 when they started the rebuild too late. Michael Zwick says, great show today, Justin. The crosstown rivalry or debate in this case continues. Go Wright State. There we go. Michael Zwick. Shout out to Michael Zwick. Very smart guy. Makes a lot of sense. We'll be back. 518-1410. Shaw will lead us out. I'm going to take calls on the other side. Don't go anywhere.
Listen to this station anytime, anywhere on Odyssey. Odyssey is your new audio home for all the music, news, sports, and podcasts that matter to you. Odyssey. That's AUDACY.
This flu season update is sponsored by Exergen. Getting your flu shot is important, but CBS News' Dr. Taryn Arula says you should keep these tips in mind as well.
Hand washing, staying home if you're sick so you don't infect your colleagues, sneezing or coughing into a tissue, all of the things that we talk about to prevent spread of disease.
If you're checking for fever, the leading sign of COVID-19, beware of dangerously inaccurate non-contact thermometers. Instead, learn about Exergen at Exergen.com.
At CDW, we get the path of progress is complicated, but CDW Amplified Services experts can collaborate with you, develop roadmaps, handle deployment, and manage your environment so you can achieve your goals faster than you thought possible. From implementing advanced cybersecurity techniques to optimizing your multi-cloud environment, we'll help you design, orchestrate, and manage the solutions your organization needs so we reach the finish line together. But you get all the glory. CDW Amplified Services. People who get it. Find out more at cdw.com/services.
Some people think fall is the best time of the year. It may also be a great time to consider getting vaccinated against COVID-19. Brought to you by BioNTech and Pfizer.
Want to buy your own home but think you can't afford it? What if you got down payment assistance or a discounted interest rate just for being a recent college grad, teacher, nurse, or veteran? The Ohio Housing Finance Agency offers this and more, and our programs are always available for eligible Ohioans, big city, small town, and everywhere in between. Find out if you qualify at myohiohome.org. That's myohiohome.org. Home ownership, ready when you are.
Menards Enchanted Forest has been a Christmas tradition for over 60 years. We invite the whole family to come take a stroll and find everything you need to deck the halls. Find that perfect tree to display your ornaments, ribbons, garland, and tree toppers. Create a warm and cozy space with decorative accents and hanging decor. Find it all at Menards Enchanted Forest.
If you're hiring, you need Indeed. Indeed helps you attract, screen, and interview quality candidates all in one place. Visit Indeed.com/credit.
O'Reilly. Don't miss See Better, Drive Safer month at O'Reilly Auto Parts with great deals on wiper blades, headlight bulbs, and more. Right now, get up to a $20 gift card after mail-in rebate with the purchase of select Sylvania bulbs. Plus, earn double O Rewards points with your purchase. Get ready for the weather ahead during See Better, Drive Safer month at O'Reilly Auto Parts.
O'Reilly Auto Parts.
It's not just Santa who's coming to town, it's also your in-laws and their cousins. So time for some gifts from the Home Depot. From doorbell cameras to intelligent thermostats, you'll look smart and save big on the latest smart home gifts. Does your father-in-law like to fix things around the house? Put him to work with a DeWalt 20-volt 2-battery starter kit. Buy one, get one free. That should keep him busy. No matter who comes to town this year, make the holidays yours with savings on tools and gifts store-wide from the Home Depot. How doers get more done.
Dayton Barrel Works Bourbon and Whiskey Bash is Saturday, November 20th, noon till 3 p.m. Over 40 bourbons and whiskeys to sample. For tickets, call 937-228-2337. Dayton Barrel Works, 318 East 2nd Street in Dayton.
This ad for Hellsberg Diamonds has been specifically written for those who'd rather think about football than engagement rings. When free agency starts, your team wants to get the best players they can without spending too much. If your team is you and the players are engagement rings, then your best bet in free agency is shopping at Hellsberg Diamonds, where you know you'll get the highest quality diamonds at prices that keep you from going over the salary cap. Visit your local Hellsberg store and ask about our price match guarantee, or check us out at hellsberg.com.
Cordell Transportation is now hiring Class A CDL drivers. $5,000 sign-on bonus. That's right, $5,000 sign-on bonus. Home daily dedicated lanes, no-touch freight. Apply today at CordellTransportation.com. Cordell Transportation, driven to succeed.
Bags under your eyes? That's junk sleep. And Mattress Firm can help. Shop the Black Friday sale and save up to $500 on top-rated mattress brands like Sleepy's.
For the ones finding new ways to ensure the job always gets done. For the ones wearing many hats. For the ones who are hands-on, even from far away. And the ones keeping business moving forward. We are Grainger, offering supplies and solutions for every industry, with 24/7 support and experienced staff at over 250 local branches. Call, click Grainger.com, or just stop by. Grainger, for the ones who get it done.
Hustler Turf commercial mowers are built tough to work hard. Whether you need a fleet of mowers or are a one-man show, you don't have time for downtime. Hustler mowers are over-engineered, overbuilt, and tested well beyond what is required, with the most complete lineup in the industry, including exclusives like a 104-inch Super 104, an 88-inch stand-on, and industry-leading warranties. Hustler mowers are ready to handle what you throw at them. Build your fleet to be reliable and versatile with Hustler Turf. Visit Small Engine Service Pros in New Carlisle today.
You have empty office space to fill or home office to create. You know what you need. You know what you'd like. But you also have a pretty good idea after you've shopped around the usual places what you need and what you like might not happen. Well, then you haven't been to Charles Larrick's Warehouse Outlet. Nobody has their selection. Nobody has their discounts. And every week there's something new. If you need office furniture, Larrick's Warehouse Outlet can sell it to you for half the price and below manufacturer's selected prices. Half price and below on hundreds of items. Selection from budget to the best. Really, desks from $50 to $5,000. Filing cabinets from $25 to $500. Before you go anywhere else, do yourself a favor and come to Larrick's Warehouse Outlet. With 25,000 square feet of selection, you're not going to go anywhere else. Larrick's Warehouse Outlet at 23 McOil Avenue, Dayton. Open Monday through Friday, 9 to 6. Larrick's, continuing the tradition.
At the Montgomery County Veterans Service Commission, we help veterans and their dependents navigate the process of applying for benefits administered by the VA. We can assist with VA claims, pensions, and a variety of benefits including emergency financial assistance, transportation, and legal services. If you are a veteran or a spouse of a veteran, a wide range of services may be available to you, always at no cost to the veteran. We are honored and proud to serve all Miami Valley veterans. Contact us today at 937-225-4801.
Attention Class A CDL drivers. Looking to be more than just a number? Yoel Transportation in Dayton is looking for drivers with at least 1.5 years experience. Yoel has open positions for no-tarp flatbed drivers and no-touch regional or local van drivers. Yoel is ELD compliant and offers 401k with match, medical, dental, vision, holiday pay, vacation, safety bonuses, and now has a rider policy. Call Rick or Joe at 937-294-5933 and ask about the $5,000 sign-on bonus today.
Germain Honda, Beaver Creek is your local Honda dealer. For a limited time, get 0% financing on the 21 Passport, the 22 Pilot, and HRV, or 1.9% for 48 months on the 22 Odyssey. Lease a 22 HRV Sport for as little as $229 a month, or a CRV Hybrid EX for as little as $279 a month. See me, Sales Manager Jason High, for all the details. We are located on Route 35, just east of 675 between Xenia and Beaver Creek. Germain Honda, Beaver Creek, the right car, the right price, the right way. I hope to see you soon.
There's confusion about how to protect yourself from COVID. One thing is certain, whether or not you're vaccinated, you need an accurate thermometer to check for fever, the leading sign of flu and COVID. Be vigilant and contact your medical provider at the first sign of fever. Don't rely on non-contact thermometers that have no scientific studies. Only the Exergen temporal scanner thermometer has been proven accurate in more than 100 clinical studies. Learn more at exergen.com.
Open enrollment for healthcare.gov is here. If you're uninsured or you have a job that doesn't offer insurance, check out healthcare.gov. Due to a new law, prices are lower and more people qualify. Now, 4 out of 5 customers pay just $10 a month or less with financial help. It's easier than ever to find the right plan for you, and millions of Americans just like you have already enrolled. New law, lower prices, more people qualify. Sign up at healthcare.gov by December 15th.
At Napa, when it comes to serving you, their motor never quits. From next day delivery and curbside pickup to getting involved with local communities, that's Napa know-how.
I'm still amazed at how many of you still think that the Browns are not going to give Baker Mayfeild an extension. Now, this is my favorite part of doing the show is when I make a comment like that, I'm met with a lot of, I never said that. Well, maybe that comment doesn't necessarily pertain to you. But It is interesting on social media, whether it be Twitter, Facebook, the vast majority of the anti-Baker Mayfield folks out there. I mean, you would think Baker's like the worst quarterback in the history of the world. I think it was Mike Tannenbaum today was on the Dan Patrick Show, and they were talking about Baker Mayfield. And was asked about, whether or not the Browns should extend him. And he said, absolutely not, that he's the 6th best quarterback in the AFC. And what I'm really interested in, and by the way, I don't think Baker's top 5. I said fringe top 10. Last year I said top 10, and I believe that. This year, I don't think it's because he got worse. I just think a lot of quarterbacks got better. I don't think Joe Burrow's a top 10 quarterback, not because I'm a hater. I just don't think a guy that is obsessed with throwing it to the other team deserves to be in the top 10. I mean, Baker Mayfield, when he was doing that, y'all vilified him like you wouldn't believe. But anyways, not getting into that. Now, Baker Mayfield's the 6th best quarterback in the AFC, and I'm thinking... And that's wrong, and that's bad because why? The thing is, so for instance, I'm going to use a basketball analogy here. If you have Kobe Bryant, Michael Jordan, Shaquille O'Neal, Oscar, I'm just throwing out top name. Let's just say, okay, so Shaquille O'Neal, you have LeBron James, you have Michael Jordan, you have Kobe Bryant, you have Kevin Durant, and then you say that, okay, the 6th best player coming in is James Harden. And I'm throwing out random names, folks. I really am flying off the cusp here. I have no idea. But the point is, if James Harden is the 6th best player of those 5 players right there, does that necessarily make him bad? If Baker Mayfield is the 6th best quarterback in the AFC alone, does that necessarily make him bad? I mean, if in the AFC, you're probably talking Josh Allen, you're probably talking, obviously, Patrick Mahomes, you're talking Justin Herbert, Lamar Jackson. I'm definitely not putting Joe Burrow there. I'm not ready to take Joe Burrow yet. I mean, Baker Mayfield's 3-0 against Joe Burrow. Okay, Joe Burrow has never beat the Browns. Baker Mayfield is 6-1 against. I'm sorry, now he's 7-1. He's 6-1 now against the Cincinnati. But anyways, it's besides the point. So if Baker Mayfield is the 6th best quarterback or the 5th best quarterback in the AFC, my question is what's wrong with that? If the only quarterbacks in the AFC that are better than Baker Mayfield is Josh Allen, Lamar Jackson, Patrick Mahomes, Justin Herbert, and Derek Carr, I mean, if those are the 5 quarterbacks that are better than Baker Mayfield, my big question is what's wrong with that? So when Mike Tannenbaum today said that the Browns can't win a Super Bowl with the 7th best quarterback in the AFC, and I'm thinking that doesn't make any sense. You know what I mean? And I'm being serious here. And obviously Joe Burrow's not a top 5 quarterback in the AFC, but that would be no one's saying that about him. Okay. Right now, if you look at the majority, and again, Bengals fans, a lot of Bengals fans in the area, you think he's a top 5 quarterback in the AFC. He's not, but in your eyes, he is, and whatever. I don't feel like debating with you today. But the bottom line is, you look at all of the national lists, you're looking at Patrick Mahomes, Josh Allen, Lamar Jackson, Justin Herbert, and Carr. And then I think it's Baker Mayfield and Joe Burrow, and I think Trevor Lawrence will be there sooner rather than later. But the point is, and Mac Jones right now, if he continues on this pace too, but the bottom line is it's a ton of talent. The AFC is loaded with talent. But hearing Mike Tannenbaum today say that the Browns can never win a Super Bowl with the 6th best quarterback in the AFC. So does that mean the Bengals have 0% chance of ever winning a Super Bowl with the 7th best quarterback in the AFC? That's a horrible take. I just can't get on board with that. I just found it interesting. I wanted to bring that up because I thought it was kind of silly, to be honest with you. Here's the next thing. When it comes to this. The Browns right now are signaling an extension for Baker Mayfield is coming. For one, they've told you that. You hear that, you don't listen to it. The Cleveland Browns made a couple moves this last couple of days that organizations don't make if you don't know who your quarterback is. When you have drowning football teams out there, you don't see football teams going out and loading up and spending a ton of money on their offensive line for a quarterback that they don't have. Hell, you have some teams, wink, wink, that have a quarterback that still don't invest in their offensive line. Okay. So so the Cleveland Browns back-to-back days announced huge extensions for their guards on that offensive line. Ian Rappaport announced earlier today that the Browns have agreed to terms with guard Joel Bitonio on a contract extension, locking up their second big-time guard in 2 days. Of course, first was Wyatt Teller yesterday getting that big extension. So now you have the core of your offensive line locked up through 2025. You have Nick Chubb locked up for quite a few years now. Do you think that they locked them in just for Nick Chubb and that they'll figure out the quarterback thing later? No. Teams don't make those moves that don't have a quarterback. The Baker Mayfield deal will get done. It's only a matter of time. If the Browns truly had hesitations about Baker Mayfield, they would not have invested into that offensive line. They would not have invested into Bitonio and Wyatt. They would have said, hey, these guys actually have some trade value. If we're not sold on Baker Mayfield, that means we don't have a team right now. So that means we need to go that next step and start rebuilding, right? No. The Browns front office today and yesterday told you that Baker Mayfield's their guy. Teams don't give extensions to guys like Bitonio and Teller, who are kick-ass, by the way. But when you want to talk about like investing money into certain positions, the offensive line you usually don't put money into until you have somebody, we can't just say we're going to put money into it and hope that we have someone to protect. You put money into it to protect somebody. Because when you talk about Baker Mayfield being the 6th best quarterback in the AFC, he's the 6th best quarterback in the AFC, which is not a bad thing, by the way. When the quarterbacks that are ahead of you are Justin Herbert and Patrick Mahomes and guys like that, like they're pretty dang good. They're pretty dang good. And if those guys are ahead of him, then that's fine. What I would have a problem with is if guys like Zach Wilson was ranked ahead of Baker Mayfield, then you have a problem. But if you are the guy that's right behind a Lamar Jackson or right behind a Patrick Mahomes or right behind a Justin Herbert, I think you're okay. And I think that Baker Mayfield's just fine. And I think the Cleveland Browns know that as well. A deal will get done. It's not a matter of if, it's just a matter of when. But there's not a team out there that is securing their right and left guard spots right now to protect the quarterback that they don't even know if they have one. No, the Browns know who they have. The Browns know that Baker Mayfield's their quarterback. Oh, Baker Mayfield, he's only successful because of Nick Chubb and that offensive line. Then you know what you do? You keep Nick Chubb and you keep that offensive line. It's that simple. I mean, why do you want a quarterback that can win with anybody? But like what you're telling your fans is like when you say things like Baker Mayfield could only win with Nick Chubb in that offensive line, well, you want to know what that's a good thing. You want to know why that's a good thing is because the Browns figured it out then. They know that. Okay, the key to winning is offensive line run game for Baker Mayfield. That's usually how most quarterbacks work anyway. Most quarterbacks don't have success with bad offensive lines. Most quarterbacks don't have success without a good run game. So I hate when people say that Baker Mayfield, the only reason he's good is because of that offensive line and that run game. Yes, that's usually the case. That's usually the case. Aaron Rodgers can't be Aaron Rodgers without a good offensive line. It's that simple. It's common sense. Aaron Rodgers is way better than Baker Mayfield, though. Aaron Rodgers can close the gap on deficiencies. Baker Mayfield can't, and that's okay. Because while you guys knock the Browns for having the 6th best quarterback in the AFC, there's still, what do we say? There's still 9-10 other teams who are looking for their Baker Mayfield. Oh, Baker Mayfield, he's the 14th best quarterback in all of the NFL. Okay, so that means 16 teams are looking for a quarterback like Baker Mayfield then. I just don't get it. You guys just hate him, and that's fine. That's what makes this fun. I love that I'm a Browns fan, and I love that I'm pro Baker Mayfield because it's you guys that look silly. You guys make up these rules for Baker Mayfield that you don't even make up for your own. I was told how bad Baker Mayfield was 2 years ago because he threw a lot of interceptions. Bengals fans loved making fun of Baker Mayfield for all the interceptions he's thrown. Now your quarterback leads the league in interceptions, and all of a sudden, that doesn't mean much. What? You tell me I move the goalpost. My goodness, yours are on wheels, and you just slide that baby across the field. But like I said, that's huge news out of Cleveland, getting that extension with Bitonio and Wyatt Teller yesterday. The two most important spots of that offensive line are secure moving forward. You have Nick Chubb moving forward. You're about to wrap up your deal with Baker Mayfield moving forward. The guy that I think is going to be the odd man out is Denzel Ward. Denzel Ward's the guy that I think is going to not get the extension. And it's not because he's not good. I think Denzel Ward's one hell. Bengals fans, you know how good he is. Obviously, that pick six is with the tone setter, right? But Denzel Ward's good. But the problem is there's no question about what he could do on the field. The question is how much will he be on the field? That's the problem. That's the big concern with Denzel Ward. And I think that right now, Baker Mayfield has missed one game in 4 years. 1 game in 4 years. And your best ability is your availability. Denzel Ward is better at his position than Baker Mayfield is at his. But Baker Mayfield's available every single week. And you can't say that about Denzel Ward. There's no question about who Denzel Ward is as a talent. There's no question. So I'm just saying as far as that's concerned. But everyone out there that's so concerned about Baker Mayfield, oh, whoa. It's funny how they're getting all these deals done with everybody except him. I'm pretty sure Jerry Jones and the Cowboys, they got a lot of deals done with some of their key defensive pieces. They got a lot of deals done with Zeke Elliott. They got deals done with Amari Cooper. They got a lot of deals done before they got to the biggest deal of them all, and that was Dak Prescott. So the Browns, the fact that the Browns are locking in their offensive line, because that's the thing too. You guys want to know, you guys say Baker Mayfield can't win without that offensive line and run game. Well, if Nick Chubb would not have agreed to the extension, if Bitonio and Teller did not agree to the extension, and their offensive line was going to be bad, then at that point, you do got to question signing Baker Mayfield to an extension because, hey, they're agreeing with you. Baker's only good because of that good offensive line and that good run game. Well, that's why it's important to lock up the good run game and the good offensive line. So that's called being a good organization. A bad organization watches your quarterback get hit the third most times. Like last season, Joe Burrow was hit the third most times of any quarterback in the NFL. He didn't even play the last 2 months of the season. Your front office watches that and passes on so many big names in the draft, takes a chance on Jackson Carman, signs a veteran guy and Riley Reif to a 1-year deal. You still don't have a long-term plan to protect Joe Burrow. He's the fourth most sacked quarterback in the NFL right now. That's a problem. That's a bad front office. A good front office looks at the situation and says, okay, rather than focus on what Baker can't do, let's look at what he can do. And what he can do is win us games, win us playoff games, get us to the playoffs. Yes, because of that offensive line. Yes, because of the run game. But then that's why you stick to the offensive line and run game. And by the way, even if your quarterback can win without a run game and offensive line, you're still a stupid owner if you don't try to get your quarterback an offensive line and a run game. The key to winning anything in the NFL is give your quarterback time to throw, open up lanes for the run game. It's that simple. The Browns are not like doing any kind of voodoo witchcraft over here. The Browns are actually a very smart organization right now, and I can't believe I'm saying that. Bengals fans, you get mad at me all you want. There's a lot of people that look at your organization and scratch their head trying to figure out what in the hell do they talk about behind closed doors. And then there's the Cleveland Browns, who people try to mock them with, your quarterback can't win unless he has a run game and offensive line. And you realize that you're trying to make them sound stupid, but in the meantime, you sound stupid because you're mocking the recipe that works. Teams win, quarterbacks succeed because of offensive lines and run games, but so do teams. Andrew Berry didn't lock in Bitonio and Teller just because of Baker Mayfield. They didn't get the deal done with Chubb just because of Baker Mayfield. They did those things because that's the key to winning. And they believe Baker Mayfield is the key to winning. And Baker Mayfield's deal will get done. I'll be back in a moment.
It's the Justin Kinner Show with Kev Nash on 1410 ESPN Radio.
If your family depends on your income and something happened to you, what would happen to them? You need life insurance, and SelectQuote can help you get it at a price you can afford.
SelectQuote found Jacob, 40, who's in excellent health, a 10-year, $500,000 policy for only $19 a month.
Not in perfect health? Don't worry.
SelectQuote found Tanya, 40, who has type 2 diabetes, a 10-year, $500,000 policy for only $32 a month.
We shop companies like Protective, Prudential, American General, and others to find you the company with the best rates. Give your family the security they need at a price you can afford.
For your free quote, call 1-800-519-0449. That's 1-800-519-0449. Or go to SelectQuote.com. That's 1-800-519-0449.
SelectQuote. We shop, you save.
Get full details on the example policies at SelectQuote.com/commercials. Your premium could vary depending on your health, issuing company, and other factors. Not available in all states.
Open enrollment for healthcare.gov is here. If you're uninsured or have a job that doesn't offer insurance, check out healthcare.gov. Due to a new law, prices are lower and more people qualify. Now, 4 out of 5 customers pay just $10 a month or less with financial help. It's easier than ever to find the right plan for you, and millions of Americans, just like you, have already enrolled. New law, lower prices, more people qualify. Sign up at healthcare.gov by December 15th.
I've been working at Skyline for 5 years now, and I love it. My favorite thing about working at Skyline is just the people. I've become really good friends with a few of my coworkers over time. It's just not coming into work, sitting down, and like going home. You create a bond at Skyline. You become a family in a sense. You know, you're working together every day, you're learning from each other. For me, it's been a great benefit at Skyline, and I just love it, honestly.
Skyline Chili is now hiring. Apply online at skylinechili.com/careers.
From city streets to back roads, from road warrior to carpooler, there are some things you can always count on, like the reliability, durability, and power of DieHard, America's most trusted auto battery. No matter where your journey takes you, count on DieHard to get you started on the road ahead. Available at your local Advance Auto Parts and participating CarQuest stores.
There's a confusion about how to protect yourself from COVID, but one thing is for sure. Whether or not you're vaccinated, you need an accurate thermometer. Contact your medical provider at the first sign of fever, the leading sign of COVID and the flu. Only the Exergen Temporal Scanner Thermometer has been proven accurate in more than 100 clinical studies. Be vigilant and don't rely on non-contact thermometers. They have no scientific studies behind them and can miss the fever that might mean COVID. Learn more at Exergen.com.
Finding the right Medicare plan may feel impossible, but now it's anything but. With Walgreens Find RX coverage tool, you can compare plans online, over the phone, or in person, making Medicare easier than ever. Easier than picking which true crime doc to watch, figuring out that Wi-Fi password, or putting the duvet cover back on. So if you can do those things, with Find RX coverage, you can definitely Medicare. Find the plan that's right for you by visiting walgreens.com/Medicare.
Bags under your eyes? That's junk sleep. And Mattress Firm can help. Shop the Black Friday sale and save up to $500 on top-rated mattress brands like Sleepy's.
O'Reilly.
Don't miss See Better, Drive Safer month at O'Reilly Auto Parts with great deals on wiper blades, headlight bulbs, and more. Right now, get up to a $20 gift card after mail-in rebate with the purchase of select Sylvania bulbs. Plus, earn double O Rewards points with your purchase. Get ready for the weather ahead during See Better, Drive Safer month at O'Reilly Auto Parts.
O'Reilly Auto Parts.
It's not just Santa who's coming to town, it's also your in-laws and their cousins. So time for some gifts from the Home Depot. From doorbell cameras to intelligent thermostats, you'll look smart and save big on the latest smart home gifts. Does your father-in-law like to fix things around the house? Put him to work with a DeWalt 20-volt 2-battery starter kit. Buy one, get one free. That should keep him busy. No matter who comes to town this year, make the holidays yours with savings on tools and gifts store-wide from the Home Depot. How doers get more done.
Hundreds of thousands of people have said goodbye to their overpriced Verizon, AT&T, or T-Mobile plans and switched to Pure Talk. It's CBS News business analyst Jill Schlesinger. Did you know Pure Talk gives you the same great coverage on the same great 5G network as one of the big guys for about half the cost? The average family is saving over $800 a year. You can keep your number and keep your phone or get huge discounts on the latest iPhones and Androids. Unlimited talk, text, and 6 gigs of data is just $30 a month. Or if you want unlimited data, you can still save a fortune. With US-based customer service, Pure Talk treats their customers right. Plus, they have a 30-day risk-free guarantee, so you literally have nothing to lose. From your cell phone, dial pound 250 and say Jill 50 to save 50% off your first month. That's pound 250, say Jill 50. Pure Talk is simply smarter wireless.
Bags under your eyes? That's junk sleep. And Mattress Firm can help. Shop the Black Friday sale and save up to $500 on top-rated mattress brands like Sleepy's.
Welcome back. Ohio State moves up to number 4 in last night's college football playoff rankings release. Rankings reaction right here on Dayton's ESPN radio station, 1410 Wing AM. We talked about this earlier in the show. It fascinates me still. I know everyone says that the committee does move the goalposts around from week to week, and I understand why, but I don't think it's goalpost moving. Like, the college football playoff, the path to the playoff is not so cut and dry. Like, it's not the same for everybody's path to the playoff is different because everybody's regular season is different, because everybody's schedule is different, because everybody's level of competition is different. This is why I'm so adamant that when people say, oh, the 14 playoff is not fair, I'll accept a lot of reasons for why you don't like the 14 playoff. The one that I will laugh at you for is when you tell me that it's not fair. Because if you're saying that the playoff needs to change because it's not fair, you don't understand that there's no such thing as a fair system. College football, college athletics in general, I've always said it's not a fair foundation. There's nothing fair about college athletics. There's nothing fair about Wright State and UD both being D1 basketball programs, but yet one school has way more resources in a bigger conference, everything else, blah, blah. Like, we have levels of D1 teams, right? We have our low majors, our mid majors, our high majors, but they're all D1 and they all have to play by the same rules. That doesn't make sense. At least in pro sports, everyone abides by the same salary cap. We can get mad at the Reds, the fact that they say they're small market and don't spend money, but they're choosing not to spend money. They're choosing not to try to financially compete with these other teams. Now, you could say, well, the Yankees have more teams than the Reds. Be that as it may, but it's not as if the Reds are not spending to their true capacity either. It's not like, and you could even say baseball does need a salary cap, but at the same time, the fact that it does not have a salary cap is all the more reason why the Reds should still be in better positions than what they are. Go spend the money. And if you don't want to spend the money, stop treating it like an investment that you're trying to save out, hope to have money on the other side, and go get someone that actually gives a damn about baseball. In basketball, that's not the case. In college basketball, that's not the case. In college athletics, that's not the case. It's not like, the Reds have money in Major League Baseball. They just choose not to go spend it. They're cheap. The Bengals at times, I don't think that they're a cheap organization. I think that they're lazy, and I think it's embarrassing that they don't have an indoor practice facility, but they're cheap from that perspective, but they have money. They could spend money like every other team in the NFL. Some years they choose to, some years they don't. I think they've never been shy of spending money. I just think they spend money really irresponsible. I think that where they put their money not really help protect their investment in Joe Burrow. Now, you could sit there and say, just because Joe Burrow's up and walking right now does not mean that, that they did a good job in the offseason. I mean, did you watch the Browns game? Did you watch how Joe Burrow just got absolutely obliterated? There's still another game with Cleveland on the schedule. You still got Baltimore again on the schedule. I know you beat up on them last time. You're not doing it again. You still got Pittsburgh. The point is, they at least have the means to get it done. Just because they choose not to doesn't mean that they're at a disadvantage over other teams. Wright State would love to have bigger facilities. They would love to have their own basketball arena. Technically, they would love to have all those things, but you're at the mercy of the level of competition in which you are. Duke is technically the same level of basketball as Wright State. Technically, right? D1 Duke, D1 Wright State. Dayton's D1 as well. And the gap between Wright State and UD is pretty wide, but the gap between UD and Duke is even bigger. And that's not a shot. That's just common sense, folks. If you don't understand that, take your homework cap off. I don't have time for you. And then the gap between Duke and Wright State is astronomical. Not just from player talent standpoint, but from revenue, from resources, from fan bases to everything. But yet, we all have to come up, and that's college basketball. College football. You have your Miami of Ohio's, you have your Bowling Greens, you have your Akrons. Akron, Ohio State played earlier in the season at the Shoe, under the lights. Both D1 teams. People got mad at Wright State in college basketball last night for playing a D2 team. Akron and Ohio State are both D1 teams. D1 teams. And look at the gap between the two. Not just because of talent, but just the opportunity. I mean, if Akron had the resources and the facilities that Ohio State did, they could be, better. I'm not going to say powerhouse, but they could be better. But they don't have that opportunity. They don't have that money. They don't have those resources. Why? They're D1. You would think that everyone has the same opportunity. No. The Yankees may be able to spend more money than the Reds in Major League Baseball, but the Reds choose not to spend money at all, and that's their problem. The Reds' problem is not that they don't have as much money as the Yankees. The Reds' problem is that they just choose not to spend money in general. That's their problem. Well, we can't compete with the big teams because of money. Well, what little money you have, you still choose not to spend to begin with. That's on you. I don't feel bad for you. I feel I'm embarrassed by you. Spend your money. But colleges don't get to pick what money to spend. So at the end of the day, it's one of those things where stop telling me that the college football playoff system's unfair. Of course it's unfair. The whole system's unfair. Not just the playoff, but all of college football, all of college basketball, the NCAA. I mean, the whole thing is stupid, really, when you think about it. And I've always said this, even back when Schlemmer and I did the show, I said, if you take a non-sports fan and sat them down and tried to explain to them college athletics, they would look at you like, what the hell? What are you talking about? But if I explained the NBA to you, you have 30 NBA teams. There's a salary cap. You all make lots of money. You all have big stadiums. Some teams sure have a little bit more money than others, but still, even the teams that don't have a lot of money, you still have enough money to go make something happen. You just choose not to. The bottom line is everyone plays under the same rules. The scheduling is done for them. They have a draft that everybody gets access to the same level of players. Free agency is done so that everyone has access to the same level of players. That's not the case in college athletics. That's why I get mad at Bearcat fans when they say, this is why they need to expand the playoffs so that we can get in. Well, that's why the playoffs need to expand so the Bearcats can get in the playoffs. Well, once you expand and the Bearcats get in, then what's that next level of teams that's just now being snubbed? Because if we're saying, oh man, the Bearcats are getting screwed, and then you expand the playoffs and the Bearcats get in regularly, there's still going to be that next level of teams that are being screwed. How far out do you have to expand the playoff to get to the point where we're talking about how MAC schools are getting screwed out of the college football playoff? Now you're saying, oh, come on, Justin, that's just silly. Well, that's how a lot of people feel about the Bearcats. Why do we need to make something that's fair for the Bearcats? What makes the Bearcats so special that, that we need to worry about their feelings and not worry about the MAC and worry about Conference USA and, the American in general and all that. So, you know what I mean? Like, this isn't beat up on the Bearcats, but, the Bearcats come across strange when they want this special treatment of, oh, well, they need to do this for us because we're, it's not fair for teams like us. What do you mean it's not fair for teams like you? Outside of the Power Fives, it's not fair for anybody. And sometimes it's not even fair for some of the teams in the Power Five. Look at Wake Forest. I mean, that is what it is as far as I'm concerned. I mean, I know Wake Forest got their first loss, but I mean, let's be honest. Had Wake Forest beat North Carolina over the weekend, would Wake Forest be at number 6 at 9-0? No. So again, this isn't a what's fair conversation, because if you want to come up with a solution that's fair, good luck, because there's no such thing as it. Now, if you want to say you hate the 14 playoff because you just want to see more teams in it, there's substance there. I'll give you that. If you want a 12-team playoff because you think it would just be more entertaining and that more teams the better, okay, fine. But don't waste my time. And don't embarrass yourself around other human beings by trying to waste people's time and say, well, the 14 playoff's not fair. It's not fair for the Bearcats. Well, it's not going to be any more fair for the Bearcats at 6 or 8 or 12 teams, because the same reasons that we're talking about why the Bearcats shouldn't be in the playoffs right now in a 14 would exist for a 12 team. Blow out bad teams. That's all you got to do. Stop having 4-quarter games with the likes of Navy, Tulsa, and Tulane. It's the Justin Kinner Show with Kev Nash right here on 1410 ESPN Radio.